Welcome to day 2 of the Funeral Unconference. I'm Ryan Thogmartin with Disrupt Media. Thanks for tuning in. We've got people from all over the place. Make sure you are active in the chat, asking questions on panels. It's going to be a jam-packed day. We've got a lot of one-on-one interviews today. We're going to kick off the day with Jen Parvin from Batesville. We'll have our marketing panel today. We're going to be talking about live streaming. We're going to be talking about travel plans. We're going to be talking about, what else? Let's see. A little bit of everything. We got a lot today. Licensing. We're going to wrap the day up with licensing conversation. So really, really cool. But thank you to all who are joining. We had over 1,000 plus people join the live stream yesterday, which is amazing. I mean, we live streamed for 4.5 hours. That was a long day. So just absolutely great. I'm going to answer some questions that were in the chat yesterday. Recordings for both days will be sent out to everybody who registered over the next 48 hours. We'll get those recordings out. So if you miss anything, you can go back and watch those panels from both days. We'll have out those recordings. Make sure you're engaging in the comments today. Make sure you're asking questions. Also, just if you spam the comments, you will get blocked. Just gonna say it now. So don't come spam the comments with a bunch of links and a bunch of junk. So you will get blocked. Love you all. Okay. All right. I'm going to kick the day off like we did yesterday. We're going to do a prayer, a quick little devotional. I'm going to just share a little bit of my testimony. I got asked quite a bit yesterday. I got some emails. Obviously, I've done a pretty bad job of sharing my faith because I had a lot of people that reached out like, man, I had no idea. I'm like, oh, I feel like I talk about how important Jesus is to me quite a bit, but maybe not enough. So I'm going to share a little bit of my testimony this morning. I grew up in church. It was just like what we did. And I told people for the longest time, I remember a conversation the one year I was in college before I dropped out. I told somebody, I don't have a testimony. Just grew up in church. My dad was a pastor of a small country church. I think the most people we ever had on a Sunday maybe been 65. But church is just what we did. There was no option. Sunday morning you were in church. Sunday evening you were at youth group, and that was it. So I didn't feel like I ever really had this come to Jesus moment. Like I go to these conferences and I listen to people share their testimony, and it is just God has brought them through a lot of different things, pulled them out of the pit, and I'm like, I just don't have that. I don't know. I've never had that. So that was my testimony. And in 2010, a lot of you probably remember, I was still pretty young in deathcare. I was working for my father-in-law's Wilbert franchise, making sales calls, and I was going up a hill, and a girl was coming over the hill the opposite direction, was text messaging, went left to center, hit me head on. Killed her passenger. I shattered my right femur in multiple places, wheelchair for 6 months. I was 3 years into connecting directors at that point, and I was in a position where I think family-wise, we had both of our daughters. Kaylee and I had been married for 5 years, and I was just in build mode. I was like entrepreneur, thought I figured everything out in life. Was really a terrible dad. I don't know, maybe terrible. I was present, but I wasn't present. I was physically there, but not mentally there. I would work all day for her dad, come home, and then I would just go into the basement and start working on scaling connecting directors and figuring out deathcare and what I didn't know, and spent a lot of time doing that. If I kissed the kids goodnight, that was rare. If we did a family dinner, even more rare. Kaylee would fall asleep. I'd roll out of bed, be in the basement till 4 or 5 in the morning, sleep for a couple hours, and repeat that pattern just over and over and over and over for years. And so just really unhealthy. A lot of what I talked about yesterday of just that grind and missing the moments was a lot of our life. And when I had that car accident, I really felt God go, hey man, you think you have it all together, but everything could change like that. Like I'm in control, you're not. And I was really operating in this lane on my own where it was just me. Everything that was going to happen was because of me. And in that moment, realizing that God's going, hey, man, I've got my thumb on it. So whatever direction you're going is because of me. Whatever door opens is because of me. Yes, you have to do your part and do the work, but I've given you the privilege to be able to do this. And it was an awakening of sorts. I'm still pretty stubborn and hard-headed and disruptive, so I didn't get it immediately. But that was my come to Jesus moment. And I gave the analogy a couple years ago when I was sharing this story. I said that in that moment, it was like God was saying, "Hey, come dance with me." And he was moving, but I wasn't. My feet were stuck in concrete. And if you've ever danced with somebody that can't dance and their feet don't move right, it's impossible to do the dance, right? And I felt like that was the analogy that God gave me. Is like, hey, your feet have to come out of the concrete, and you got to step with me. And that was a big part of the process of us moving from Ohio to Arizona, just feeling that call that we needed to go somewhere, and we didn't know where we were going to go. We got a camper. I'm not a go out in the woods kind of guy, but we had a camper and a truck, and we traveled around, and God opened a lot of doors. But it wasn't until we just said, okay, God, like you said, go, we're going to go, we'll figure out the next step. And I'm kind of like, I need to know 2 or 3 steps ahead. And it was just, hey, you got to have faith and step and go. So, when I started to dance with Jesus, and when we were bold enough to go, okay, God, we're just going to take that step. You say go, we'll go. You'll keep revealing the path, revealing the next step. And I had a pastor tell me once, he said, God will give you glimpses of the kingdom. Like, what it's going to be. But if he showed you all the crap you had to go through to get there, we'd probably never do it. So one step at a time, faith and trust. And that's really been my journey. And that's my testimony. And I realized a few years ago that my testimony of not having to be pulled out of a pit and the protection of God that's really the testimony. And so that's been my life. And I wanted to share that. So I see in the comments, yes, Jesus is the chain breaker. So I'm going to do this. Like, I don't know. I really feel like when I was praying about this is what I'm supposed to do. I said something to my team earlier. I'm like, church is about altar calls. And so, look, I don't know. I've never done this in deathcare. I don't know if anybody's ever done this at a deathcare event. But if you've never accepted Jesus and you're on the live stream or you're in the room and you want to, like, let's just say a prayer. And the Bible says if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart Jesus is Lord, you will be saved. So we're gonna do that, and then we'll rock with the day. So if that's you, just repeat after me. Jesus, thank you for who you are. Thank you that you picked me, that you love me. I confess with my mouth that you are Lord, and that you saved me and cleanse me of my sins. I ask that you come into my heart right now and be Lord over my life. In your name we pray, amen. So if you prayed that for the first time, like, I would love to connect with you. So I don't know let's just be bold. Throw my email in the chat and we'll see what happens. So that's cool. All right. Thank you for allowing me to do that. But I'm going to pray over the day, and we're going to get started. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to do what we do. Thank you for everybody that's in this room and on the live stream and in this profession that serves. It is a ministry. It's not a church building, but we're serving people and loving people and just helping people through a time that's impactful, and that's a ministry, God. Thank you for the opportunity to do that. I pray that you bless everybody that's here and can hear my voice right now, and that you bless our conversation today, Lord. Thank you for who you are. We love you. In your mighty name we pray. Amen. All right. Let's rock, man. Let's get into the day. So, Jen, come on up here. Like, you're in the hot seat. Let's go. Let's see. Ashton, where should we, like, these two or these two? Right here? Awesome. Yeah, so this is cool. Okay. Here's why this is fun for me, because I've wanted to. I think it will be. You're in control of that. It's fun for me because when I first started connecting directors, it was the first outlet that really overnight news could be distributed in deathcare, not in a publication. And I didn't have a wonderful relationship with Batesville when I started connecting directors.
I had just started at Batesville.
You had. And so But I will say this, it quickly became a good relationship. Like, I had to learn a lot. I didn't know anything about starting a publication. We were like winging, still kind of winging it. I don't know anything about running an agency either. So every day is we're figuring it out. But we have had a great working relationship with Batesville, but for years we wanted to be able to do interviews and one-on-ones, and those things couldn't happen. Now they can. And so it's been exciting. You and I did a podcast earlier in the year, which was awesome. Tons of great feedback on that. But it's been cool because there's a lot of awesome things happening at Batesville. And so I just want to ask you about the 3 pillars that you mentioned yesterday of where you're really focused since Batesville's not public anymore, right? Yeah. You're private. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, so 2.5 years ago now, we took the company private, and that did open doors for kind of communication forums like this. You can imagine, right? Publicly traded company has lots of rules on what you can say and when you can say it. So it's been super fun to be able to get out and kind of speak more on behalf of what Batesville's doing. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I will say my kids, like I went up a cool rung in the mom book when I was like, I was on a podcast and the guy said dope. They were like, who's this guy? He's really cool. So thanks for the opportunity. I think from a Batesville perspective, and I was talking to somebody this morning before we started, we've always been Batesville Casket Company. I'm the head of marketing, and it drives me bananas when someone says, oh, you work for Batesville Casket? And I'm like, we are not just a casket company. And so, I even joke sometimes, like, should we change the name?
Yeah.
Actually, we officially did change the name in 2008, about the time you started connecting directors. But it's one of those, I think people think casket first. And, we did, launch the cremation business almost 30 years ago. Sadly, we did let that kind of fall to the wayside, to the wayside, but maybe didn't pay as much attention to it as we should have, right? Continuing to innovate, like I talked about yesterday. And so what we've been able to do since we've gone private is take those dollars back and reinvest. And so, still with a huge focus on burial. I spoke about that yesterday, but really on the cremation side, it's a growing business. There's a massive opportunity, not just, I think Lance said yesterday, right? I don't want to be buried or cremated. I want to be viewed, right? How do we make sure that, families and funeral directors have the opportunity to help serve families who want to be cremated, and making sure that we've got the greatest product line, from a cardboard box all the way up to a mahogany, right? Really innovating that product line to ensure it's all fully crematable, making sure we've got new urns that are going to resonate.
Yeah.
And then I get to spend a lot of my time looking and saying, okay, well, what don't we do now? And so where are places that we want to play? And so, just like we weren't doing interviews, we also weren't necessarily looking outside of the space. And so I've spent a lot of time in the cremation space saying, where do we want to go in the future, right? And so the last 2 years have been on getting the product right, getting the price right, making sure that we have people think of Batesville as not just a casket company, but being able to serve both dispositions. But then also saying, where do we go next? Like I see in the chat says, what about memory boxes? Okay, yeah, maybe that's something I'll go look at. I'm not sure what that is, but those are the things that we get to do.
Yeah.
And then expand further from that, like on the technology side. I had someone ask me today, why are we in the website business? And so talking about the value that, our technology offerings create for our customers too. And really, Batesville's been a trusted partner for funeral directors for over 100 years. And so how do we make sure that we drive that trust and partnership, not just in what they think of from a casket perspective, but on cremation, on technology, and then on whatever the future frontier looks like.
Yeah. So let's talk about the you mentioned it yesterday, like everybody goes burials on the decline. So let's talk about that and what Batesville is doing on that front, and then we'll go on to cremation and then the technology.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, less people are getting buried every year. I think we know that. And I mentioned it yesterday, right? And I say it to funeral directors all the time. There is this enduring long-term demand for caskets. And so making sure that these new funeral directors that are coming in help families understand what they're purchasing. We talked about like online caskets yesterday and understanding what is the value of the product and why are families buying it. And so Batesville's spending a lot of time still working on that kind of education component, making sure that we are that partner and consultant with our customers to help drive that awareness to their funeral directors while still, innovating and creating new things. I wish I could tell you guys, but I will say this. So we have something coming in the fall that I am so excited about. My team has like a funny personality and they like nicknamed it after me. So we'll see how that goes. We'll probably change the name. Yes, we definitely will change the name. But from a product perspective, the ability to make things uniquely personal is something we have to continue to do as an industry. And so we've got some things in test now that are really exciting and resonating well. And so come find me at NFDA, and I'll show you exactly what it is. But it'll take caskets, further than where we've been in the past.
I love that. I love it. And, but you've been very innovative too on the cremation side with caskets. I think when we talked in February, 120 plus new cremation products. Is that right?
So yeah, we'll have over 200 new cremation products by the fall. On the innovation side though, by the fall, all of our wood caskets will be fully crematable.
Wow.
So our team of engineers and our product managers spend a ton of time really understanding how do we take all the metal parts out of caskets? Because when a family walks in and says, I want a cremation, just like they know they have to buy a casket for burial or a container in a vault for burial, how do we make sure that they know that they've got to do that for cremation? And how do we make sure that families have the same choices? Yeah. And so really taking all those parts out, changing the material, and making those products fully crematable means that when you look at a Batesville catalog or a Batesville online litho book or digital showroom, anything that's wood can be used for cremation families. And I think that is an industry first and something that we invested in the cost of the product, but also making sure that we can create value for the family and the funeral director.
I don't want to miss this. There's somebody who wants to connect with you. So what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can just send me an email.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah, that might be a bad idea.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
You can connect with me on LinkedIn or send Ryan an email.
There you go. Send me an email. We'll get you connected.
Send Ryan an email.
Don't do that. I'm an idiot. You're not.
I'm you'd be surprised. It's not a hard thing to figure out. I see the name. I'll find out how to contact with that.
There you go.
We absolutely want to get you some Batesville caskets.
There you go. All right. Let's talk about technology because you're known for caskets, cremation products. You guys were really ahead of the game 30 years ago with cremation product. Mm-hmm. But technology, how does a product company, merchandise company, just innovate through technology?
I think the biggest thing from a technology perspective is our focus is really understanding how consumers interact. And I can't remember who said it yesterday. It may have been on the technology panel, but consumers are consumers in your funeral home and consumers in their everyday life. And so where we think about technology and innovation in technology is how do we best represent our products? Yeah. How do we best ensure that families can understand the value of the product that they're getting when they're looking at it, possibly on a screen? And I can remember, legends before me at Batesville were like, we have to have all full-size casket selection rooms. They'll never understand the value of the product if it's not a full-size casket selection room. And I do think that there's value in like touching and feeling and seeing a full-size product, but consumers don't want to walk into that every single day. And so how do we make sure that we're looking outside the industry? I talked about our partnership with 3Kit yesterday. How do we look outside the industry and say, what do the likes of high-end retailers do to present their product? And we need to be doing the same thing as an industry, whether it's the casket manufacturer or the funeral home or the cremation product manufacturer, to really make sure that consumers can see the difference on just like a 2D box on Costco, yeah, right. and something that your funeral home offers. So for us, that's where we really spend our time. And it's been super fun to go work with folks outside the industry to say, how do we revolutionize how products created, both in the full-size selection room that we talked about in the podcast, yeah. And then the digital selection area as well.
Which is really cool because that process, the selection room is still valuable.
Oh my God.
Still go to the selection room, the arrangement, like it's still valuable. Yes, we have all these online arrangements and different things and some automation, but like the selection room is still a big focal point of the funeral home.
Well, it's a massive revenue generator. Yeah. And so I know a lot of people are like, I'm going to take my selection room out and make a catering center. Great. Like if you think you can generate revenue, then do that. But I would challenge you to make sure that you have a good environment for families to really understand the product that they're selecting. So, combination of physical and digital. You can use a modified space, but really change that experience, because consumers are coming in and they're expecting to, we're expecting them to spend thousands of dollars on a product. And if we don't create an environment that makes sense for them to spend thousands of dollars on a product, why in the world would they do it?
Yeah, that's cool. You're exactly right. And I love that conversation. You can find that podcast online. There's a lot of people that want to get in contact.
I know there are a lot of people that want to get in contact with me. I've never felt so popular in my whole life. Thank you, Ryan.
Hey, yeah, we're doing our part. There's some links to physical showroom, a Vimeo testimonial as well. So our team's dropping those links in. I want to ask you about the consumer trends. I went through that consumer trends when you guys sent it out. Tell me, like, what out of those consumer trends was most surprising to you, of anything?
We talked on a couple of them yesterday. I joked because a lot of us do consumer research, and good news is the consumer tells us all the same thing. So that's great news, right? I think there is this kind of cost perspective thing that consumers are like, I don't know what I want to spend. I'm not willing to spend it. And then when you go back and look, like, consumers are actually not as surprised at the total cost and are actually more in line with kind of their expectations. And so I think sometimes, I saw a comment in here that said we shoot ourselves in the foot. I do think sometimes we do shoot ourselves in the foot because we assume what the consumer wants.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they don't want to spend any money, so let me just give them a direct cremation with a cardboard box and not even talk about an urn. And it's like, no, guys, no. The research says that they are willing to spend. We just have to help them understand.
Yeah.
And then the other one I think continues to ring true, and I say it all the time, is personalization. Like, we as an industry underestimate how important it is to make funerals and products unique. And consumers, that demand continues to rise. It was 30, it was 50, now it's over 70. And still 50% of funeral directors are like, oh yeah, I only present it to my families half the time.
Which is crazy, and that's one of the things we talked about on the podcast with the digital showroom, is like, you have to figure out a way to present everything to the family. They don't know what they don't know. And I forget who said it. I think it was Chris yesterday, that 90% of people, or 90% of people in the profession assume that. Okay, so 90% of people in the profession assume that families understand pre-need. Less than 30% of families actually know that pre-need's available. So there's a big gap, and I believe that on the product side and with everything, and the buck kind of stops with the funeral home, because that's how the consumer gets educated properly.
Yeah.
They can get educated a lot of other places, but it's not advocating for death care. So the funeral home has to do a better job of educating the family, presenting options, which is what I loved about the digital showroom.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole point in the digital showroom, was ensuring that every family understood the opportunities and the decisions that they have to make. And so, we have 3,000 people at Batesville, right? I've got to make sure that those 3,000 people know what they're supposed to do every single day. It's difficult, right? Managing people is difficult. And, whether you have a staff of 2 or a staff of 2,000, we tried to find a way to really make sure, not overwhelming, not too many questions. No one wants to type in front of a family. I've heard that a million times. But how do we have moments of truth to be able to have simple questions or conversations that allow families to make those decisions? And I would say, right, the more that we can help educate the family, the better decisions that they make. And you said the buck stops with the funeral home. Ultimately, that's where the communication to the family occurs. But I would say it's an industry responsibility. Yeah. We're all responsible for creating opportunities to educate families. And so we've done our part, right, to put something out there that allows for that process flow. We'll continue to get feedback and iterate as we go. I had someone say, hey, can we just have 10-second little videos that could go in? That way my funeral director doesn't even always have to explain it. So certainly going to take those feedback points and add them in, but education, and really driving processes for families to do all of those things, I think, is really important.
I would go a step further and even say, too, that it's partly on suppliers to go direct to consumer with education as well. We can talk about that a different day.
We can. I will say, someone put that in the chat yesterday, and my VP of marketing circled it, highlighted it, and sent it to me and said, how can we do more of this? I will say, in the last 2 years, this is crazy, Batesville did not have product on its consumer-facing website. So we have a gated website that funeral directors can get in, but we never showed product. We added product 2 years ago, and then it, can send it to a funeral director to buy it. Obviously, we don't, sell to the consumer. But the traffic on that page is unreal. And so I agree with you. I think there's a real opportunity to help people understand what they're looking for.
Love it. Okay. We'll wrap up with this question. What are you most excited about? I mean, you've been in death care and at Batesville and created a lot of change, moved things forward. What are you most excited about for the next 5 years?
Oh gosh, the next 5 years, that's like
Okay,
a lifetime
how
in
about the
death
next
care.
12 months?
I think the thing that I'm most excited about, and I think I said this in the podcast, when we launched a ton of stuff at NFDA this past year, and there was like a proud mom moment where I could stand in the booth and say, wow, like all these things came to life. And so I challenged my team when we left that conference that I don't want this to be like a flash in the pan moment, that I want every year that we are creating and innovating new things that are going to move the industry forward. And so I'm excited that we have as many robust things in the pipeline right now as we did this time last year, and continuing to think about how that comes to fruition and how that creates value for our customers, the industry, and ultimately the consumer.
Love it. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being on the panel yesterday, one-on-one like this. I'm excited to do more podcasts and interviews and some fun things.
Well, chains off. We'll go for it.
Okay. And if you need to get in contact with Jen, go through LinkedIn.
You can find me on LinkedIn, Jen Parvin. Shoot me a message, and I will absolutely. Someone on my team's probably on this call. Can you look through those names on the chat and figure out who we need to call?
Figure it out. Let's go. Awesome. Thank you, Jen.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. I'm going to bring up next, we've got Jimmy Altmeyer. Jimmy, you're in the hot seat. Let's go. Jen. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Jen. This is one of the things we got to fix for next year, the transition. Like, what's the right way to transition somebody on and off a panel? I don't know. We're just walk-up music. Everybody gets their own walk-up music. That's it. Like, my favorite TikToks are when moms take over the walk-up music for, like, Little League boys. And it's like, let it go, let it go. It's funny. Awesome. Well, Jimmy, thank you for being here. Thanks for being on the panel yesterday. Give a quick introduction to who you are and what you do. You bring a very cool perspective into this room because you're also an owner, operator of funeral homes, not just a supplier. So give a quick introduction if you can.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate being here. It's been a wonderful experience. I've learned so much from everybody who's here. So thank you all for the opportunity to be with you. So Altmeyer Funeral Homes was started in 1917 by my great-grandfather. He had one location. My grandfather's generation grew it to 3 locations, and my dad and I have worked very hard over the last, 35, 40 years together. And we've grown it to 55 locations in 4 states, so we're very proud of that. And so that's Altmeyer Funeral Homes. And along the way, what we wanted to do is create an organization that could help other funeral homes have the benefits that Altmeyer has, with our suppliers and with the knowledge that we've gained over time. So we started a company called Treasured Memories as well.
So I got the opportunity and the privilege we spent about an hour together last night talking, like learning about all the different things that you do. And we're going to talk about Treasured Memories, but I do want to applaud and just honor you in the way that everything that you've created, it was like you saw a need and you're like, okay, we can fix that. And if we fix it for ourselves, and then we can fix that for the profession. And it was really cool to see how that has evolved and how you're really like consumer first in everything that you're doing in your firms and where you see the need and create like the boldness to just go create it and do it. So that's cool.
Thank you. I love trying to solve problems, like to figure out what's the solution and then help everybody else enjoy that solution.
I love it. So tell me about Treasured Memories. What is Treasured Memories?
So back in around 2009, we decided to go ahead and start Treasured Memories. And what it would be in our vision was a membership organization, and we could help the people that were members. And so from then to now, there's 250 owners, about 850 locations, and the people who are members of Treasured Memories serve about 120,000 families a year. So, and I also looked at it along the way as SCI has done an outstanding job with Dignity Memorial. If people didn't realize that, that's very much the case. And what's the independent alternative to that? And there really wasn't one. Yeah. So my true vision for Treasure Memories is we would be the independent alternative. We would be the place that you could go look for a provider who was an independent funeral home in a community that really cared about the people they were serving.
That's awesome. So what are some of the things that Treasure Memories offers? And there's a lot.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. So one of the things we set out to do in the very beginning was put together a relationship with different providers who provide things in to funeral homes. And so anyways, we created a network of service providers in the profession. And those service providers provide us the ability to give loyalty rewards points back to the members. And so I just don't want to forget who they are. So I wrote them down, so I'm going to read this. So we have Batesville Casket Company. Many of them are here today. So thank you, Jen. Batesville Casket Company, Homesteaders Life, Funeral Directors Life, Dodge, MemoryShare. Thank you. The Verizon, AT&T. Nobody's here from Verizon, AT&T, but
hey,
we do save a lot of money. C&J, Cremation Recycling, Tribute Technologies, Legacy Touch. We have Family Shield. I don't know if you guys know John Givnish, but he has an outstanding product called Family Shield that helps people make at-need payments. We have Inman. Thank you, Dave. Dead Ringers, Memory Glass, Live Oak Bank, Cremation Recycling, and many others. So anyways, we have a lot of people who have joined us throughout the years helping funeral homes become very successful.
I love that. And you're a connector in that way. So I think that's the beauty of like even a room like this, everybody being able to connect and partner. It's cool to have people that are in this room. The majority of people in this room are on that list. So that's awesome. I want to ask you, what is Treasured Memories community funding? You were telling me about this last night, and the profession needs to know about this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Another thing, I just want to make sure that we also work with, the website providers. We, Legacy, Tukios as well. Tukios is here, obviously. But we've worked with many of the website providers to help us host Batesville as well. We worked, with Tribute very much. And what we did was we created Treasure Memories community funding. And so we have different services, solutions that we've come up with. But Ernie Hefner, I don't know if anybody knows Ernie, he runs what's called Deathcare Management Council. And what Ernie did is he would have people come in and say, what's the best thing we're doing now? And one of them, he said, he had, who was it? Alan Dave. He came in and said, best thing I'm doing now is I'm working with, GoFundMe. And I was like thinking to myself, well, I wonder how that's working out. So I went in to our funeral homes and said, how's GoFundMe working out? Is anybody using that? Oh yeah, we had a service for a young boy who passed away. And what happened was we donated the services, and then the family was on GoFundMe saying that we need help to pay for the services that we donated. That was hurtful. We have other people saying that, hey, we have we have $10,000 in GoFundMe, and that's how we're going to pay the bill. And then they never came in and paid the bill with that. So what happened was I said, we need to help our communities, and we created Treasure Memories community funding. And over time, we've been able to help tons of families. And if you go on tmcfunding.com, you'll see the families that we've helped. And some of them don't need help. A lot of them want to make memorial donations to people. And, like universities or colleges or wherever. And Rosh DeJean in Cleveland, Ohio, he had this one lady who passed away tragically very young. And that family wanted to raise money for Case Western Reserve Law School, where she went to law school. And they were able to raise over $100,000 for the law school in her name. So they've done an outstanding job. I mean, funeral homes throughout America have done an outstanding job utilizing, but basically Treasure Memories community funding, not crowdfunding, gives independent funeral directors throughout America the ability to raise money and help their community, help the people in their community when there's been a tragedy, and also help the organizations that the families want to donate to.
That's fantastic. I love it. Like, it's almost the default anymore to go directly to GoFundMe. So we've got to figure out a way to get that in front of the family before they ever go to GoFundMe. Because there's 1,000 stories like that where families have raised money to pay for funeral funds, and it doesn't happen. So
it puts the funeral director in the center of helping the family instead of on the outside looking in.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, you have done a lot of different things inside of death care. You've built a lot of different things. What makes you the most excited about the next few years? Like, what's next for you?
What's next for me is our focus, treasured memories. What we do is what we say, celebrating life's treasured memories. And my focus is bringing the funeral director in our profession back into, and when I'm saying back into, we've slowly let it slide over time. We've let ourselves go outside of being involved in the service. And so I'm very focused on, with our team, helping people and helping our funeral directors, helping funeral homes who are interested, help bring back the funeral profession into celebrating people's life's treasure memories. And I think it's extraordinarily important, because if we don't, somebody else is going to fill that void. And we've done a great job with that.
Yeah, I've done a great job with that. And all right, so you grew up in this profession, right? Your family was in the business. I mean, a lot of things have changed. What do you think from that? Like, what has surprised you the most of what you've seen change in death care?
I guess it would be the change would be is trying to keep funeral directors involved, because it's very hard. I mean, being a funeral director is not easy.
Yeah.
And helping families and being there for them and walking them through every step, and the slide coming out over time, has been challenged, because there's a lot of funeral directors retiring. COVID, a lot of funeral directors retired during COVID. People were talking about this yesterday. Not as many people are coming into the profession, which is going to make it even more difficult. So the technology, the services, what we provide, as professionals, the people here who are at this conference, providing funeral directors the opportunity to help families better. But it's going to become more challenging going forward. But I think that's a huge key, is keeping the funeral director involved.
I love it. Okay. I believe proximity is power. And when you can be around people who have done the thing that you want to do and they know how to do it, you can learn. So, one piece of advice you would give a young funeral homeowner just getting started, what would that advice be?
It's a challenge, but it's a passion. So if you have passion for serving others, then you will be successful. And so my advice is make sure that this is the profession that you want, because if it is, you will be highly motivated to deliver outstanding service. But if it's not, don't get into it. But it is a ministry. It is a passion, and we really truly want to help people. But make sure that you find that true north and head that direction.
Love it. Jimmy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we're going to move next with the King of Ring, Welton Hong. Well, what would your walk-up song be?
If there's a song for King of Ring, though.
If there's a song for King of Ring. Awesome. We're going to do, Welton and I are going to do a one-on-one, and then we're going to move into our marketing panel after that Curtis Funk from Tukios will moderate. All right, so this is fun for me, because a lot of people call us competitors. And you and I probably have partnered more than any other marketing companies should partner. We work with a lot of the same funeral homes, and so I wouldn't look at it. And it's fun to do this event. This is, I think you weren't here last year, but the fourth time you and I have been able to kind of do some one-on-one panel discussions together. So one, I appreciate that.
No, it's fun.
I appreciate the relationship that we have, but give everybody an introduction to the King of Ring.
Welton Hon, founder of Ring Marketing, and these days we serve 3 distinct verticals. So we work still quite a bit with trades. As you guys might imagine, trades are very, very competitive, right? Working with an HVAC contractor in Las Vegas, there's probably 40, 60 other HVAC contractors. That's all trying to fight for attention. And death care is still our largest vertical. And then in the last couple years, we started adding on that whole continuum care vertical, working with home care, assisted living, hospices. So it's been fun.
I love it. I love it. And I like that you've diversified a little bit. I think that that's important. And I think it is important when we can see what works in other professions and then be able to apply it, because the consumer's the consumer.
Oh yeah.
The way they shop, the way they buy doesn't really change,
Yeah.
whether it's a air conditioning unit, window and door, or a senior living facility or a funeral home. So
No, it's actually very fun to know each industry. You can really mimic that industry, what's doing well, over to death care and vice versa.
all right, so I'm gonna just go straight to it. We talked yesterday a little bit about AI, generative AI, and search, and what's happening and all of that. So give us your perspective. I mean, that's the world you live in.
Yep, Google is dead. I'm just kidding. Right? So if we look at overall AI, I love AI. Me personally, I'm using Google a lot less now. I go straight to ChatGPT or Perplexity, right? But if you look at how is Google evolving, and I always say Google is not stupid. The main revenue source is what? Search. Yeah, search ads. It's gonna do whatever it takes to make sure you and you and you are clicking on those ads. It's its main revenue source. And you can see Google is always slow to adapt. It doesn't want to kind of change its cash cow, right? So if you look at what's happening right now is as more and more users are going onto ChatGPT, Perplexity, these chatbot, right? We're all still kind of the early adopters, and we all know Google is slow to react. It's not slow to react in a way, it's this cash cow. It's trying to figure out, okay, finally we should do something about it. So you can see that AI overview section being out for at least almost a year already. And slowly you're seeing it more and more often, right? And now there's that AI mode that's finally, again, it's just slow to adapt. It knows, and if you look at Gemini model, it's not worse, it's sometimes actually better than ChatGPT. Right? Google is slow to adapt because it has so many users. It cannot be rolling out things without being fully tested. So if you look at that in mind, is my personal thought is you can see Google is actually putting in ads inside the AI overview these days. And from a lot of studies being done, again, first of all, that AI overview, I love it because it just summarizes everything for you. Now, if there's an ad in there, if you actually click on that ad, somebody going on to click on the ad to go on your website, that is a much higher quality, much higher quality lead. Because already done all the research. Okay, let me learn more, or let me buy this, let me reach out to them, click on this, it's much more meaningful lead. So I'm actually loving it, right? Folks are freaking out. Again, I'm a media buyer, so wherever, if Google start getting less attention, we go switch to the next one.
That's right. It's funny because I get asked all the time, what if Facebook goes away? What if Instagram goes away? What if TikTok? I don't care. There'll be something else. We're all going to go use something else, and then we'll figure out how to play there. So
exactly. And even cool. Right now, the biggest thing here is classically we call SEO. You're trying to optimize your website to be highly ranked on Google. These days, you got to start learning GEO, generative engine optimization. So
tell me about that.
GEO is a new thing we all just got to learn, right? Okay. How does your website get ranked whenever people are using chatbot?
Okay.
Right. So it's still coming. Again, everybody's trying to figure it out right now. You got to use LMS.txt file, so it's searchable. Right. There's a lot. Again, nobody knows a whole lot yet. We're just trying to innovate as we go. But that's a new terminology that we all have to. SEO might be dead eventually, and it's going to be overtaken by GEO.
GEO. We just keep throwing acronyms out.
I know. I'm like, even like.
Yep. All right. So, I mean, what excites you the most then about the changes that Google is making and how you guys are evolving?
I love it because, if I go back, we got into deathcare 2015. Back then, there's very little funeral homes really present on search, right? Very little. Even back then, you can see very little people doing Google ads. What the heck is SEO? Even talking about reviews. That's new to the industry, but it's not new to trades.
Yeah.
Right? So back then, when I first started working funeral homes, you can easily get $3 a click. These days, easily $8, $12 a click. Right? So I'm loving this whole sad. I'm loving it because by now, any market I pull up my phone right now, do a search, you'll see just a bunch of ads already, right? All funeral homes, direct cremation providers, everyone's fighting for that placement. That's why year to year, the ad cost just gets it's getting higher and higher to the point sometimes like doesn't make sense to run ad placement. So I'm loving this reset. Like, what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I love that digital changes literally every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day we're getting updates from Meta and Google and of tweaks and it's cool. Like I think Google's even ahead of like as soon as somebody figures it out, then they switch it up.
Oh yeah, they don't love you to know what the heck they're doing.
It's like a cat and mouse game, right? At least Facebook gives us like Meta gives us some ideas of what's coming and what they're changing and how to play nice with it,
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
So I get asked this a lot. I'm going to ask you. I don't think I've ever asked you this question. If you owned a funeral home, let's say you bought a funeral home tomorrow, or you started one from scratch, like how are you marketing that funeral home?
Simple. First thing I would do is I would do oddly majority of my time that year one. I'm just gonna call it year one. It's gonna be boots on the ground. Networking with hospices, you gotta get your name out there, right? That offline marketing is so critical. Again, we're digital. I laugh about offline all the time in a nice way.
Yeah.
And knowing offline is so critical, you gotta get that referral source to come in. You cannot rely everything on digital. That relationship building is so critical. And I haven't seen, like Jimmy, you guys do it so well, the offline component. And that typically these days, 80% of business is coming from offline marketing referral sources, and that 20% is where digital come in. But digital and offline really go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Even that referral that says a hospice referral, they go Google your brand name, and you lack in reviews. They're like, why would I be working with a funeral home that's 3-star? Or if they go on your website slow to load, it doesn't talk about who you are, what you do, how are you different, you're gone. So, but year one is I will be doing offline boots on the ground marketing.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, connection, relationship will always trump anything else. So you and I talked a little bit about this last night, and we'll kind of wrap up with it. Like, where do you see end of life as a whole? So funeral home, senior living, hospice, you're doing a lot in that vertical. How do you see those funneling together? And
they're very intertwined. I will say very, very intertwined. I haven't seen a whole lot of funeral homes. That whole continuum of care, they really do work. They already are working very well together. They are. Home care, assisted living, hospice, they all are in that. They're networking already. It just somehow, funeral homes, we don't try to get plugged into that whole continuum of care, right? So it's kind of fun, right? I have clients out in Chicago. That's all that whole continuum of care, right? So I got able to host a small dinner. Hey, hospice, go sit in the same table as my funeral home client. You guys talk.
Yeah.
And then now we start picking home care. You guys got to be in the same room. Just talk.
Yeah.
And help each other out.
It's the same family.
Yeah, you guys are.
Family, same set of data, same family. I love that. There's a huge conversation there, and there's probably opportunity for us to just go together, buy a funeral home, buy a hospice living center, buy a senior care facility, and then you own the whole town.
Yeah, like just own the whole continuum of care.
It's great. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate the relationship that we have. You and I end up on the same speaking circuit together a lot, and we follow each other or whatnot, which is great, because what happens in Google and what happens in social and creative, everything plays together, and it's not a one or the other, it's a both, and how do you make it all work together? So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ryan.
And so you stay here. We're going to cruise into our marketing panel. So John with Elevia and First Call Marketing, come on up. Curtis, you're moderating this thing. I get to put the iPad away for a second. I'm going to give you mic number 1. And then I guess I can sit by you. I guess I'll sit over here. Let's do that. And so I want to say thank you to Curtis for and Tukios and the team there for being the title sponsor of the unconference from day one. I think you were the first person that I reached out to in the middle of COVID when we decided to throw this thing together virtually for the first time in 10 days. And you're like, yeah, let's rock. And then when I said, what do you think about in person? You were the one that's like, yeah, you should do it. And then when I said, should I talk about Jesus? I remember calling you last year and I'm like, I think I'm gonna have my daughter open up with a devotional. What do you think? And you're like, dude, it maps. Yeah, why wouldn't you do it? So I appreciate that. Thanks for moderating this panel. I don't think it'd be fair for me to moderate the marketing panel that I'm on. So I'm glad that you are willing to do it.
You make it easy for me. Just give me a list of questions here. Well, we got to start with intros, right?
Yeah.
Let's start down at the end.
All right. My name's Scott Jensen. I'm with First Call Marketing, and we are an AI-powered marketing agency exclusively for funeral homes, and we're based out of Lehi, Utah.
John LeFrandt, founder and CEO of Elevia, formerly DomaniCare, and we do aftercare is what we're most commonly known for, but I would say we're a consumer experience platform. We engage with the consumers primarily via text messaging, and we have employees in 14 different states, and we're 100% remote, but I live in Utah.
Go for it.
Welton Hahn with Ring Ring Marketing. Live in Vegas. So if you're in Vegas, let me know. And I love to eat a lot of food.
Oh, what's your favorite kind of food?
Anything.
Okay. I'm Ryan Thogmartin, Disrupt Media and ConnectingDirectors.com. Disrupt is a creative agency. That's the easiest way to say it. We do a lot of creative.
And you used to live in Utah, and I live in Utah.
I
This is
did.
the Utah panel.
I did
except
used
for
to live in Utah for 10 months, Park City. It was great. It was cool because I was in proximity to you. I shot down, saw John. I didn't know you at that point, but you know,
we were
I'd
in
come
the
hang out
space.
now if we were there.
All right. I'm going to add another question here at one
Let's
point,
go.
too, that I think will be really interesting, just if we've got time for everybody. But we'll just start with Scott down the end and go in this order. So how can a funeral home know if their marketing is working?
Yeah, so yesterday we talked a lot about business intelligence and funeral homes knowing their data and knowing their numbers. Jamie Meredith talked about that a lot. And the same applies with marketing, especially when you're pumping a lot of money into it. It's so important to know, hey, how well is my marketing working? In knowing how well your marketing working, it really depends on what kind of marketing you're doing. So if you're writing pre-needs, the way you measure that success is going to be different than if your goal is to build your brand, build your awareness in the community, staying top of mind. That's going to be another way that you measure it. And then if your goal is to generate leads and more cases now and over the next couple of months, the way you measure that's going to be different as well. And where we fall in is we do a lot of stuff on that last one of generating leads and cases now and over the next couple of months. And as you guys are aware, a lot of that can take place on Google. And the nice thing about digital marketing is you can get easy access to a lot of metrics like clicks, impressions, clicks to calls. But what we found is when we stop there, it still leaves us wondering a little bit, hey, how well is our marketing working? And a quick story of this, when we started in the space, we were working with a funeral home, and on our end, it looked like we were crushing it for her. So her clicks were up, her impressions were up, her clicks to call were up, and she calls us really upset. And she goes, guys, my numbers are down this month. And so we were kind of scratching our head because from what we could see, everything was looking good. And so after a while, when we couldn't figure it out, we got her consent to start recording her calls and going back and listening to them. And what we found is a lot of these calls that we were paying for with the Google ads were what we call logistics calls. So people calling about Bob's obituary, or what time Shannon's service is on Saturday, or hey, when can I pick up Mom's ashes? And so going back and listening to the calls, we were able to categorize them to find out, hey, is this actually somebody looking for a funeral service that will grow their case volume, or is it a logistics call? And so that's one thing that we recommend to a lot of funeral homes is, hey, record your calls, listen to them, find out what's working with your marketing. And then another thing, AI has been a super hot topic here for a good reason. You can leverage AI to transcribe some of those calls for you and then automatically categorize, hey, is this a qualified lead or is this a logistics call? And then that can help you as a funeral home owner and as marketers to be able to see how many leads and actual cases are we getting versus just clicks and impressions. And so those are some things I'd recommend to some funeral homeowners out there to get a little bit more granular and tangible with your marketing results.
Awesome. So John, as you mentioned, you're not probably like a marketing company, right? So you kind of sit in between the customer journey and the technology platforms, really. But as families' expectations are changing, how can firms evolve their approach to meet those needs before they even walk in the door?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing there is their communication preferences are changing. And, you know, I think the funeral profession, almost more than any other profession, we are a relationship business, and it's all about building and strengthening relationships with people in the community. We live in a digital world, and so there's a lot of ways in which we can connect that I think kind of fabricates that, or it's not actually true and authentic connection. And so it's trying to get over that hump where you can build those relationships one-on-one with whether they're prospects, people that are in your pipeline, people that have an actual death case and they need to have help immediately, or people that maybe had a service in the past. It's all about building and strengthening those relationships, and I think you have to look at what communication mediums are most effective. You need to have an omni-channel approach, so you got to do it all. I mean, really, you need to be on social media, you need to have email, you need to have phone calls. And text messaging for us has been just incredibly powerful, and I think with the sensitive nature of just death in general, people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it in the future. They don't want to talk about it when it actually happens, and they don't often want to talk about it when it was a recent loss. But they will open up via text messaging for whatever reason. We've found that, and they open up a lot. And so I think meeting the families where they're at is crucial. And will that change with time? I mean, you had some conversations about that even on like the Google front. Sure, it might, but it's our responsibility as a profession to stay on top of that. And I guess my big just key there is try to make it as meaningful as possible because of the sensitive nature of the service that we're providing.
Excellent. Welton, you've already talked a little bit about this, but what are some proven digital strategies to increase at-need calls in 2025?
Yeah, so the overall framework still has not changed. It's still going to be exactly still Google, right? Because the reasons Google, it's basically the old yellow pages, right? Imminent need, near need. You directly go on Google and you search. So, but it's just getting tougher to get that ad placement. Ads getting more expensive. Getting ranked in that local search is getting tougher because everyone's doing more, and SEO is getting tougher, right? So how I typically explain these, the overall strategy has not changed unless AI really took over, the AI overview. But how I look at search these days is it's more to do with protecting your market share. If you're very well branded in your community, unfortunately, when somebody goes on Google, type in funeral home near me, if you don't show up. So to me, these days, if you're doing 200 calls a year, there's no guarantee the following year you're going to do 200 calls, right? So I use search these days more as maintaining your market share. Obviously, you want to grow your market share. But very often these days, folks are like, hey, I did digital marketing, or I did Google Ads. I've been running Google Ads myself. Haven't seen tangible increases. But that's still better than you not even showing up, because that call would have gone to somebody else. That's reality. If somebody's searching for your home near me, they didn't see you, they see somebody else, they're going to go with somebody else. So these days, overall strategy has not changed. However, we all talked about getting traffic, but the traffic then flows through to the website. If the website, that's really is where the conversion really happens. You got to have better quality content on your website, really distinguish who you are, what you do, how you're different. That's where all the content really come into play. That really is where the conversion happens. And then before they call you, they need reviews. again, the overall framework has not changed, but what I've been seeing more and more is their phone is ringing already. It's not doing more marketing. Their phone's ringing. They don't know how to convert the call. They think these are price shoppers. Of course, it's shopping calls. So I would really say, yeah, to answer the question from the previous, it's like if I in year one, I would really do more offline marketing and really get trained on how to answer these shopping calls. Because most like your phone's ringing already. You just got to convert better. Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
I'm like wondering, like, if, I'm putting myself in the funeral director's shoes, and like if I've been like using, expending on Google and driving my calls, and I've seen a couple, like, some increases year over year, do you see that, like, maybe that might flatten out?
It will
and
saturate.
then you'll saturate.
Guaranteed it's going to saturate, right? Any platform in the beginning, the early adopters will get I'm sorry for going these keywords, cheaper cost per lead, right? But as more and more people start jumping in, the cost per click, cost per lead will start to go up. And there's going to be a plateau, even for a funeral home. If let's say you're in a decent sized town, eventually there's only so many people going on Google to look for your services. That's where you got to be firing off other branding strategies, social media, so they'll have their own sequences. That's why it's omni-channel. You cannot just rely on one. And even Google, you're gonna taper it out, right?
Yeah.
You will know once things start tapering off, you're spending more money on these ads and you're getting less people, or you're getting the same amount of people to click on it, because there's only so many people. That's mindful. You gotta leverage social media to get to those who are unaware about prearranging yet. You just gotta go out there and get your word out there.
Right, and there's probably like a consistent spend that's almost required at some point to keep a certain percentage of market
Maintain.
share, right?
Right, just
Like
maintain.
10% is coming from Google, like SEM, and so like
Yeah.
if you pull that back, you're going to expect a 10% decrease
Right.
or something. So it's almost like, because I can just see, like, as a vendor, like a customer coming saying like, well, I'm paying and my calls aren't going up anymore, but it's like, well, you need to continue consistent
Still
to
gotta
keep
maintain
that.
it. And
right?
I always kind of think it as a ladder, right? Let's say in the beginning you do this, it's doing well, then it's gonna plateau. Then you have to add on the next one, but you don't tear down the first one,
Yeah.
because that one already got you there.
Yeah. There's a question from the chat here, and I think it kind of leads into, like, Ryan, your question too, which is, with limited budgets, is radio and direct mail dead?
Okay. So, I mean, most people know Disrupt as a social, like, I'm the social media guy. I love social media. Social media is a easy entry into marketing, cost effective. I do not think traditional media is dead. Okay, I think social's dead in certain ways. I think traditional's dead in certain ways, meaning that the creative is the variable. The radio ads can work if the creative is good. If it is the normal, hey, this is Smith Funeral Home, and we've been serving the community for 150 years and 97 generations, and burial, cremation, aquamation, pets. When no one cares, no one remembers, that doesn't attract my attention. We have to create in a way that is memorable. And I gave the analogy the other day to somebody. I said that, your marketing strategy has been, we've been in business for 105 years. When was the last time a family walked into the funeral home and said, you know what, we picked you because the other family's only been here 90 years, but you've been here 105. But that's the marketing strategy. Like, that's not why people choose your funeral home. There's a relationship component, definitely. But I don't think that radio is dead. I don't think that direct mail is dead. Actually, we have a ton of success with clients when we partner strategically targeted social ads with a mail drop, and the mail drop creative is memorable, and it's not the normal pack a pamphlet as full of as information as you possibly can. One of the things, I don't want to give away our secrets, but there is a way to partner social and direct mail and then retarget with social in those zip codes that has a much higher conversion, where now you can spend less on a very targeted mail drop it can be highly effective because you're hitting omni-channel, you're touching that family in different ways. And I think that word's been used, omni-channel. I don't think that there's one singular way to market a funeral home that goes, okay, we can only do that and we're going to win. It has to be relational. It has to be traditional with creative that makes sense, that's memorable. We've been very successful with billboards and creating billboards that are just one-liners that people remember. No phone number, no website, just the logo really big and a one-liner that grabs attention. That highly effective. And to the Scott's question, how do you know if marketing's working? If people are coming in the funeral home talking about it and the phone's ringing and they're mentioning it, your marketing's working. Scavenger hunts with billboards are fun. So billboards aren't dead. So you throw billboards up and then you give a $200 gift certificate for the first person that can comment on social where those billboards are in the county. Now you have people driving around, taking selfies with billboards, looking for billboards, commenting. There's ways to integrate these things together. So I don't think that anything is dead. The same with Google. These things work together. Creative is the variable.
That's really great. Any other comments from the panel on this topic? Non-digital marketing, basically.
Yeah, so as far as Ryan's point with radio, I talk with a lot of funeral home owners, and a lot of them are crushing it on radio. We personally don't do radio ads, but we'll have some people only spending a couple $100 and they're getting a lot of pre-needs written from it. And omni-channel is super important. I think a lot of it depends on the demographic too. Like if you're in a smaller town and it's a lot more relational based, that's where radio and throwing a barbecue and having people come over, or doing a Day of the Dead event where people are coming into the funeral home, those can really be beneficial. And then if you're in a big city where you got a transient crowd, the way you reach them is going to be a little bit different too. And so, a bunch of different channels, and then just knowing your audience and your crowd, how to reach them.
Okay, I'm going to throw a curveball question in here for the panel just out of curiosity, but I also just need to say the word omni-channel because I'm the only person that hasn't said it up here yet. So I'm just going to get that in. The question I've got is what do you think? And honestly, it'd be great if we had a funeral director up here to answer this too. But the question I've got is how important do you think it is that the funeral home has a marketing person on staff to augment, supplement, support, whatever your companies are doing?
I can grab this in first because we work with a lot of funeral homes directly because everything that we're doing is organic, so it's not automated. I don't think it's a necessity. I think there's a lot of value in it. Someone that's focused on whether that person is, to Welton's point, somebody that is boots on the ground in the community. They're the ones shaking hands. They're going to different events. They're going into hospice. They're partnering with churches. They're building referral partners in the community. And then they also are handling some of that marketing conversation. I know for us, we require that there's a point of contact at the funeral home that we engage with. When that person understands marketing to some ability, that is a much better relationship, and they get a lot more fruit from it because that person understands it and gets it. Very rarely are we working with a funeral home where there is a specific appointed full-time marketing person. What we've seen a lot is when a funeral home brings a marketing person in, that person doesn't necessarily understand death care. So they understand we just need to be marketing. And so if we slap a funeral home logo on a sign, then in an outfield of a Little League stadium, then that's going to be good enough, and not really understanding the relationship component and the journey of that customer. So if a funeral home has a full-time marketing person, I think that's a box that you can check. That's a win. Is it a requirement? No, I think the requirement is having somebody where that is part of their job responsibility, but also then who are they partnering with to get the right creative, be on the right channels, and have a unified message.
Yeah, I agree with Ryan, and sometimes really based on your revenue. Can you afford a full-time marketing person on staff? And we have corporates that reach out to us, or consolidators. I'm like, at your size, it doesn't make sense for you to spend money with us. It just makes sense for you to hire full-time staff at your size, you should hire somebody internally, and we can definitely work with them, and that's actually better, right? But at our size, we're not really plugged into the funeral home as much as you do. If you already have 10 locations, doing 1,000+ calls, it kind of makes sense where you have somebody internally. And what they can reach out to us where we talk the same exact language. That's always going to be better though. But typically our 175 call, 200 call, and typically those that's working on it, it's very, very part-time, might be the admin. There's not as good at doing marketing, and they think they know marketing, so.
We live in a world where we have the ability to outsource a lot and get major cost savings through that. And then you get even more specialized skills by working with different providers kind of in that. And I think that, when I look at even just what we do from an aftercare standpoint, is that marketing? Sure, like you're getting your name out there through various programs, maybe it's events, things of that nature. And if somebody were to hire a dedicated aftercare specialist, they would be paying minimum $40,000 a year probably for that one individual to do it. The volume of work that we do, it's like 1/10 of the cost, and it's completely organized. We're able to utilize technology to keep it systematic and flow. We get results, you have tracking, you have reporting, all those things that would, one human, it would stress them out probably to run that entire program and operation. So I even feel like, there's times and opportunities where you can get with very skilled marketing consultants. I mean, Ryan, there's people that you can sit down, look at the breadth of what you're trying to accomplish, and there's not a one size that fits all because, 150 call firm in rural Iowa versus metro New York, it's just gonna be a very different experience, but you do need to tailor your omni-channel approach to what your community needs. And I still think that you can outsource a lot of that. And I think even, on this panel, not really any of us are direct competitors. There's a lot of clients that we have that use all of our services for what our strengths are, and then it's orchestrating those together, and it still is cheaper than one staff, person at times, so.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. That's kind of the beauty of an agency model is you get fragmented access to someone. I think there's very few funeral homes in the country that could afford to hire Ryan full time to get his creative genius. But there's a lot of them who can get a fractional access to Ryan. And same thing with Elevia, to have a team on site, ready to text and respond, that would be so hard to do in-house. The other benefit of using agencies is we all have portfolios of funeral homes where we learn from across the country. So we've got, when we find a funeral home, find success with one type of ad in Florida, we then roll it out in Texas and California. So if you're doing it all yourself as a funeral home, there's benefits to that, but you're gonna get a lot more scale and quicker learning and better data with agencies.
Awesome, yeah, thanks for answering that. Okay, and just a reminder too to use the Q&A if you're watching this, because we're going to come back down the line here, and then we'd love to take questions from the audience. Okay, so John, well, no, we're going with Scott. Sorry, got to staying with Scott here. So, how are the advances in AI changing digital marketing landscape for funeral homes? I think this is a subject we've been talking about a lot, and I'd love your input on it.
Yeah, so I just want to say AI and omni-channel seems to be the answer to everything. So real quick, I'll touch on two aspects of that. You got the paid side, and then you've got the organic SEO side. Welton was mentioning, what was the acronym? GEO, that's right, yeah. So many terms out there. So on the paid side, these platforms that we're using are getting smarter and smarter. Google is getting smarter and smarter. I'm sure, Ryan, Facebook, I'm assuming, is getting smarter and smarter. And so a lot of these channels can market very effectively, but we need to prod them in the right direction. We need to tell them what a win is. And so that's where analytics are so important, is because if Google's AI is optimizing around the wrong thing, if it's optimizing around generating clicks of people who are going to call about Bob's obituary versus generating clicks about people who are going to call because they need a funeral service provider, then Google's platform is going to take us down the wrong direction. But if we can give it the right analytics, then it can really optimize and do a good job around the proper data. So that's a thought around the paid side. And then on the search side, so we actually had a client a while back who reached out to us concerned because he's like, hey, AI is growing so much. I know you guys have been doing SEO on the Google side, but I'm really concerned that I'm falling behind on the AI side. So we were kind of nervous, to be honest, and so we jumped on ChatGPT and we searched best funeral homes in, and then we put his city name. We were kind of bracing ourselves to see what the answer would be, and he actually showed up number 2. And the thing that was interesting is we hadn't been necessarily focused on doing something different. And what we're learning is these different AI platforms, they use pretty much the same practices that Google uses to gather data. They don't just pull data out of nowhere. They still need to go to a site and gather the data. So what we're finding is the best practices as far as search engine optimization SEO goes 5 years ago are still applicable today. Now they're evolving and they're changing and they're tweaking, but these platforms still need to find data somewhere.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Omnichannel.
Omnichannel. We need like a word cloud shirt made out of the unconference each year and kind of see what the topics are. Okay, let's break for a second here and hit some of these questions, and then we'll pick up with John again. And hopefully you guys have got some thoughts on this. So is there an industry-wide average of what a funeral home should be budgeting annually on marketing?
Jake, I mean, you consult with funeral homes on things like this from a budgeting standpoint. I know you've thrown some numbers out at me. Chris has as well. What? Okay, he said 20% of net revenue. No, depending on size. I mean, we don't really get the financials of a funeral home. So, like, working with a consultant can help on those things. Everybody probably couldn't hear Jake. Can I just throw you the mic and you give that response real quick, and then we can also address it?
Come get some more FaceTime in here.
All right, where am I looking? So depending on the size of the town, just to go over all the funeral homes we've looked at. Am I on camera now? There we go. I'll stand right behind you here. So depending on the size of the town, we base it all on net revenues. So smaller towns, 1-2% could be all you need. But on the bigger towns where you're trying to, especially if you're trying to grow, 6, 7, 8% is not unheard of. It could even be higher. But I usually see on average around 3%, 4%, something like that for people that are at least trying to maintain, look for business. But if you want to be really going after it, it's got to be higher than that, I think, of net revenues.
Love it. Awesome. Spend more on marketing. The right marketing. It's what your business can afford, but also at the same time, I'm yet to sit with a funeral home, regardless of call volume, that couldn't put a budget together for marketing. And I think that what I see a lot of is like family vacations are plugged into advertising as an expense, and then it's like, oh, well, we spent a ton on marketing last year, but you didn't really. And so you also are dealing with limited budgets, and I don't think funeral homes put enough emphasis on marketing and marketing is like, is it social? Is it traditional? Is it boots on the ground? Like, it's all of it. And looking at where you are spending marketing dollars and what's most effective. And I hate to say that church bulletins don't make a lot of sense, but I get that you want to support your church, but there's other ways that you could do that and spend marketing dollars that actually produce revenue. We say on a landing page that if marketing isn't producing revenue, then it's not working. So, I would evaluate where you're spending and what you're calling marketing. Is it actually marketing? Where are you spending it? And can you consolidate it into something that's actually measurable?
Can I add to this?
Yeah.
I think this is where analytics comes so in handy, because if you don't know what you're getting from your marketing, then you want to make sure you don't just blow a ton of money. But if you can track, hey, I put $1 in and I get $3 back in profit, then why would you just not put every $1 bill or whatever that you had in it. I just pump all your money back in. But it's really important to make sure it's working, because if you put $1 in and you get 90 cents back, then you really want to pull back. But if you can put $1 in and you get $3 back, I'm at that vending machine all day long just putting my money in.
That was a much more simplified answer. Well done.
That leads really well into this next question too. If you had $500 a month to spend, how would you spend it? Any thoughts on like the highest ROI spend in funeral marketing?
Yellow pages. So it's tricky because $500, I'm sorry for saying this, is not a lot of money to spend on advertising. If that's your constraint, I would seriously spend that money doing lunch and learns, take your referral sources out to dinner, have that real meaningful connection.
I'm gonna agree with some of that on the side of $500 is not much to spend on
Google side. Yep.
yeah. So like I look at what we could do with $500. You probably aren't going to afford us. So I would sit down with an iPhone and I would record a 30-second video that is answering a simple question about, let's say, pre-need. So you're just educating a family on pre-need. And then I would put $500 towards a targeted ad with that to your community, people over the age of 55, and get really, really dialed in to the right consumer with that message. The exposure of that alone would be valuable because the expectation of the consumer when it comes to what they expect marketing-wise from a funeral home is like less than zero. So you can have the worst quality video. You could have a 3-minute video that is really bad, but it's more than what the consumer expects. And I would focus on video, and I would put the $500 behind that one video and run it to a landing page where you can capture data.
I'll just chime in on that too, because we are on the more affordable end of things. Our basic for a 600 call firm or below is $390 a month, and we're month to month, no long-term contracts. The reason why I say that is one of the key advantages of working with us beyond all the connection points within the consumer journey is Google reviews. And that is something that the profession's getting better at, but there's a lot that you ask them what they're doing in that regard, or you look at their Google business page and you'll see 6 reviews still in 2025. And we very often will do a catch-up campaign with a new customer and go back maybe 6 months and follow up on all of the services that have been there. And we very commonly will get folks that in that first month, they'll see 20 plus new Google reviews that are right there. There's so many insights that they can glean. That is a billboard, basically. Each one of those testimonials that's there helps just the general health of the Google business page. So something to consider, but it depends on what your goals are, where your strengths and weaknesses are, what the competition looks like, et cetera, to put a strategy together. But
I'm going to add to that one thing. I said $500 in ads. That's because it's free to create content. It costs you $0 to get an iPhone, to take a photo of your grief dog, to take photos of your staff, to talk about your funeral home in that way. The platform of Meta is completely free. The platform of TikTok is completely free. So that's why I say the barrier to entry on social is $0, is because it doesn't cost anything to create a profile and put content out. The term social media, we don't really, social media is not really social media anymore. The days of chronological news feed of you follow 382 people on average, you see 20% of that content, like that doesn't exist anymore. 80% of the news feed, whether that is Facebook or Instagram, is curated of content that the platform thinks that you're going to want to look at based off of your interest. And it feels so natural that we don't really even understand that we're not seeing content from a lot of the people that we follow. We're seeing content that is so interesting because it plays off of interest. So it's really interest media. So if you create a piece of content as a funeral home organically, and you talk about your town and you say your town and you talk about pre-need, the platforms are digesting the context of the content. They know who you're speaking to. They know what you're saying. Facebook rolled out yesterday that every video now posted to the platform, regardless of length, will be a reel. The impact of that is the fact that when you post a video post on Facebook, you can write as much text as you want with that video post. When it's a reel, everything is one paragraph. So if you write a long, and it's tourniquet, so there's only so many characters. If you write a long 3-paragraph text with that video now, it's going to be condensed into one paragraph and make no sense. So what Facebook is telling us is that even what you're writing in doesn't matter as much of the context of what you're creating. So the ability for content organically to find the right user has never been better. And I think that so many in this profession miss that opportunity because they can check a box of like, I'm doing social media because so-and-so company is giving me 30 grief and inspirational posts a month, and now I'm doing social media. Well, that content isn't organically finding the right user because it's getting 0 engagement. It's not telling anybody why your funeral home is better. So the ability to create content for $0, put it on a platform that will show it to the right user to keep that user on longer has never been better. So, I was wrong in saying that $500 isn't enough to market. If you want to do some paid in target, more specifically, and run lead gen with it, $500 could do you some good. But from a content creation standpoint, anybody with an iPhone could put a piece of content out. Does that mean it's going to be good and get you business? It doesn't, but it has the opportunity to, because we live in an interest media versus social media world.
Awesome. John, coming back to you with a question of your product is very kind of post-service, right? So what trends are you seeing there that funeral homes should be aware of?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's 3 pillars, of funeral service. You kind of have the pre-need, at-need, and aftercare. At-need always kind of trumps all. It's the immediate death. You got to serve that. Pre-need, especially the last 20, 30 years, has been very robust. We've talked about just even valuations on the business and why that's so important to lock in future business. I have a lot of background in pre-need, but aftercare has always been an afterthought. I think that you continue to ask firms, what are you doing for aftercare? They immediately feel guilty. They hem and haw about what the answer is. And what I'm seeing through, we've now served almost 1.1 million families in the last 6.5 years. We've generated over 100,000 5-star reviews for our funeral home partners. And when you look at just the data that is found in the Google reviews and in the text messaging conversations, it tells me that there is a massive, massive opportunity that is missed. When you look at the pre-need motivators report, Homesteaders puts that out every year, the #1 pre-need motivator is a recent loss. And as a profession, we've really struggled still to figure out how to navigate that post-service experience. So yes, is there pre-need opportunity in the aftercare realm? Absolutely. Is there opportunity to buy property, at a cemetery? Absolutely. Is there opportunity for estate settlement type services, estate planning services if they didn't do it? There's a tremendous runway of things that can exist in the aftercare side of the space that I think has been wildly neglected. And I think that we're going to see an interesting surge in the aftercare realm. And if we do it right, and what I mean by that is that we do it because we want to do right by the families and we care about them first and foremost. Everyone will benefit as a result of that, but you have to listen to the voice of the customer and say, what is it that you need? And that's, again, why I love text messaging. You can look at the transcripts. Now you have so many AI tools that can take it and filter out exactly what you're looking for. If you're surveying families, you're able to get those insights. But dive into that data and then figure out what works in your business model. And you can figure out additional revenue streams, ability to capture new customers and clients that are maybe even broader outside of your kind of target, radius that you're looking at. I just think aftercare is going to have an interesting surge here in the next 5 years, certainly.
Yeah, and as you've tested some of these things, like, are you seeing more clicks into estate settlement, estate closure stuff today, and pre-need, or is it what? Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you have that already established human relationship. And again, that's the way we do it. We use live text message responders to do it. When you have these human relationships, it's so interesting the way you can introduce different things, and they receive it so much better. It doesn't feel like this spammy text that just goes out that blasts everybody. It's their relationship at the funeral home is reaching out saying, hey, we thought of you because we know a lot of families are dealing with this. We just wanted you to be aware of whatever resources that funeral home may provide. And when you do it in just a very tasteful, relational, we're just here to help way, the families absolutely respond. And even if they don't use the services, they're so appreciative that you thought of them to even bring that up. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Welton, when you were mentioning kind of like how to interact and play with Google, you mentioned the map pack. So what could a funeral home do to rank better inside the map search, which has become crucial?
Right, yeah. Unfortunately, Google only recommends 3 funeral homes nearby, only 3. 3 plumbers nearby, like only 3. So if there's quite a bit of funeral homes in town, it's going to be harder and harder to get in. Those 3 that Google defaults to must have done something already. But the core algorithm still has not changed. First is going to be your Google business profile, which is your Google listing, right? Is it up to date? In these days, when you look at your Google listing, you get to put in products and services. Many of the Google business profile listings we audited, they haven't even put in their products and services. Let's say you're Jewish funeral home. If you don't even put description inside your Google business profile that you're a Jewish funeral home, how does Google know? Right? Google indexed that information on there first and pulls that listing in. So I would definitely recommend you to go back, study your Google business profile, make sure login, just click on all the pencils. Can you make sure everything's updated in there? So that's the first thing. Second is going to be heavily weighted on reviews. Why would Google be recommending a 3-star business? It's really heavily, and I see year to year, Google is favoring more and more towards the review section. And so right now, if you do most of the searches, Google just screens out anybody less than 4-star. So you got to at least have 4 stars and above. And now it's coming down to you need more reviews than your competitors do, right? So the second thing. Third thing is still very strange algorithm. I still think, why in the world Google does this? But it's back in around 2010, 11, you start seeing a lot of spammers. Like, let's say you are a plumber, you genuinely serve multiple cities nearby. So you're like, hey, let me get fake addresses. Let me get fake address here in Scottsdale, in Phoenix, in Mesa, so that way I get ranked in the map pack. And that used to work. And until Google's like, how can we distinguish those that's really small business? They might get a P.O. box, they might use their home address, right? Even you've been around for 100 years, Google doesn't know. So what Google started doing is, hey, if you're a real business, most likely you would be listed on Yelp, on Bing, on Facebook, right? And that's called citation, citing to Google that indeed you're physically operating here. And I starting to see more and more direct cremation businesses that are starting to spam search engine results by opening fake locations. Temporarily, they'll be on there until Google starts to see, okay. So the whole thing here is you got to have more citations, so that way you're just protecting your market share then. But the core algorithm still has not changed. But reviews is a big deal these days.
Yeah, and definitely, like you said, keep checking that listing, because if Google's adding additional things, you want to make sure you've got that listing filled out to the max.
Yeah, one thing I would also do if I were you is monthly, just like type in funeral home near me. If you're in Scottsdale, type in Scottsdale funeral home and see who's in a map pack. And sometimes you'll see some like, whoa, who is this ABC funeral home? and that's most likely a spam listing. And if it's a spam listing, it's very simple to report. You click on edit, and then you can report it to Google. Ideally, you actually drive there, take a photo of it. And when you flag it, you upload that photo, and Google just take it down right away.
Very, very helpful. John, you got a quick question here. It's probably going to be a one-word answer. Olivia, text messages, are they AI or real people?
Real people.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so on to you, Ryan. Last question for you, and it's not on your list, sorry. I'm bringing you a new one. So obviously, I think, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, when we're talking social, Facebook's probably got the older demographic. But if you're a funeral home and you're trying to you're producing video content, you're producing modern content, do you focus on one or do you try to be on all of them?
It's interesting because we have clients where we're representing them on both. Video content outperforms 10x on Facebook versus Instagram organically because of the demographic that it's. I mean, again, we're living in an interest-based news feed. So when a funeral home is speaking about pre-need or they're answering questions, the platform knows it's not as applicable because it's death care to someone that's 25 or 30 years old. So it outperforms organically on Facebook versus Instagram. So it's still, I get that question a lot. I'm still pro Facebook because of just the distribution of content to the most profitable demographic. Should a funeral home be on multiple platforms? If they have the budget, 1,000%. Be on Facebook, be on Instagram, be on TikTok. TikTok is going to not produce revenue, but it can produce audience and exposure because the consumer is curious. So, there are a lot of viral funeral morticians or professionals on TikTok, but they're not producing revenue from 1 million views of, well, I don't want to get into specifics, but yeah, it's not, from a business standpoint of I'm trying to grow call volume, Facebook is still where you should be focused.
And what type of content are you seeing that's succeeding the most? Is it the TikTok kind of dances, or
No.
what are they doing that's going to get the most response?
It's interesting because something as simple as 3 things families should know about pre-need can be very engaging because it's super informational. But also, I'll give you 2 examples of a client that we have where everything that she produces is strategic. And I would say that to any funeral home. We're yet to go into a funeral home that has a strategy for marketing. It's a lot of let's just throw this at the wall and hope that something works. And to Scott's point, it's there's no analytical data that supports that anything is actually working. So when there's a strategy in place, now you know what to create, and there's a reason why you're creating it. So that's number one. So she wanted to go into the prep room, and the question was, I've been at this seminar and that seminar, and the advice is never take a camera into the prep room. And I said, well, I would disagree with that. I would say never show a dead body. That doesn't make sense. Don't go into don't do that. But can you go into the prep room and talk about the embalming machine? Can you go into the prep room and talk about embalming fluid? What's the purpose of embalming fluid? Why do you need to be embalmed? The value of that was the amount of comments were, I had no idea. I was choosing cremation because I didn't know anything about embalming and it scared me. You just took that fear away. I want to be buried. And so I'm going that's comment after comment after comment of the same thing. It's the consumer is so uneducated about what it is that death care professionals do every single day. And so do I think that, I said to a client the other day, I'm you could create that one video 30 different ways, and that be the only content that you put out, and it would still be valuable and people would still ask questions, because not everybody sees every piece of content. They don't understand it the first time they see it. You have to be so repetitive with it. So, video content is paramount, because there's wider distribution of video content. It gets 71% more engagement. People spend more time with the brand. So this one lady had 2 videos get over 1.5 million views organically, no money behind it. That has produced a ridiculous amount of pre-need that we can measure, because we retarget those views that are local. Like, there's a lot of things you can do with that, but it was a simple 25-second video of her literally unpacking a casket, fluffing a pillow, and there was a mortuary lift. So like, the strategy was, how do we keep the user's attention? Because one of the questions that she got on a video was, how do you get somebody that's heavier into a casket as a female funeral director? And so the title of the video talked about a mortuary lift. The video had nothing to do with the mortuary lift. The curiosity was in the fact of, is she going to pick up a body with the mortuary lift? So we had her take the video with the lift in the shot. She runs the lift over to the casket, and then the next 20 seconds of the video is just fluffing the casket. And so it gets 1.5 million views, but then the question is about, that's a pink casket. I didn't know you had a pink casket. My mom would have loved to have been buried in a pink casket. We didn't know that existed with the funeral home that we chose. We chose cremate. And now, like, there's thousands of comments where she's engaging. About 75% of the comments we could localize to that, like, her community, from organic video. Now, it's taken a year to get to that point. Like, every time she produces content, it gets more and more views, more and more views. She's getting more recognized. The value is in just answering the questions that the consumer has. Like, it is a mystery what funeral homes do. And we have the opportunity to take a video camera into every part of the business. I'm going to get crucified for this, because it's like, oh, well, this is sacred, this is dignified, this is that. I don't disagree with the dignity of what a funeral home does, the privacy of what a funeral home does, the heaviness of what you walk into every conversation with. I'm not disregarding that at all. What I am saying is that we have a more curious consumer than we've ever had before. And the future of death care and what it is that we do day in and day out depends on how we educate that consumer. Because right now, it is a race to the bottom. It is, how do I not have a viewing, not have a funeral service, do it on my own, pay $7.95 to get ashes back and move on. When there's so much value in the service, there's so much value in a viewing, there's so much value in the ceremony itself, the personalization, yet we don't talk about those things, because we sit back and go, our insecurities are, I'm not comfortable on camera. Somebody in your funeral home will create that content. It doesn't have to be the owner, but if we don't talk about those things, somebody else is going to talk about it. And I mean, I would challenge any funeral home owner to go onto Facebook, even if you hate it, and create a profile under a fake name, doesn't matter, whatever, and just see the content that comes up. You're gonna find that you're not competing against XYZ funeral home around the corner or across the street. In the mind of a funeral home owner, they go, well, there's 4 funeral homes in this town, so I have 3 competitors. You don't. You're competing against every life insurance company that's going after somebody that's 55. You're competing against every final expense company. You're competing against the Catholic Church. I mean, we had a client's like, well, I own the majority of the call volume. I don't need to protect myself socially. This is dumb. We don't need to have that expense. And I said, well, why? And they go, because our competitors don't do anything online. I'm like, well, let's just go on Facebook and look. The Catholic Church that they attend is running pre-need ads through the diocese to sell pre-need insurance. You're not just competing against funeral homes. You're competing against anybody that's going after that consumer for an end-of-life product. And unless we do something to be on the forefront and educate and over-educate and over-communicate with that consumer, they have no idea. So I would tell every funeral home, create video content, document what you do. And when I say document, it's like, hey, it's 3 a.m., this is what a first call looks like. You don't need to do your hair. You don't need to take a shower. You literally roll over and go, it's 3 a.m., just got a death call. Here's the process. And you document that in 30 seconds, and the consumer is going to be so tuned in. There was a press release today that the Mortician documentary on HBO that really isn't advocating for funeral directors in a positive way is the #1 viewed documentary in the history of HBO. If you don't think that the consumer is curious about what a funeral home does, you are massively mistaken. Create the content. I'm rambling, I know. I'm sorry, but it's important.
No, it was really good. It was really good. And honestly, like as someone who loves marketing, like how awesome would it be to be a funeral home and know that like the world is super curious about what we do and what I do. Our potential customers aren't that curious about what we do, you know? So it's like we have to do a lot, you know, you got to try to get really creative. Where a funeral home, if you just share what your day-to-day is like, that is so interesting to the rest of the world. So I think we're sort of running out of time on the panel here, but this has been awesome. Thanks for all the questions from home. Thanks to everybody on this panel for all your thoughts.
Thank you for moderating.
Yeah, no problem.
It's not an easy job, so thank you. Thank you. You did great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. All right.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break. And when we come back, we are going to do a one-on-one interview with John from Elevia. And we're also going to be getting into our services panel where we're going to talk about live streaming. There were a couple of questions in that chat about live streaming. So we're going to be hitting that topic and travel assurance. So come back in 5 minutes. Thank you for tuning in to the 2025 Funeral Unconference. I am so excited that you are with us, you are watching, you are streaming, but none of this would be possible without our panelists and sponsors for this event. So I have to shout out Tukios, who has been the title sponsor of the Funeral Unconference for the last 5 years. They've been a great partner with us in conjunction with connectingdirectors.com and Disrupt Media. Also, please make sure you are checking out all of our panelists. You stay tuned in for the entire day. There is no other place in death care where you are going to get the value from the experts that know this profession better than anybody. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you to our panelists and to our title sponsor, Tukios, in partnership with Disrupt Media and connectingdirectors.com.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tom from the Beale Funeral Home in Bowie, Maryland. I just want to say I've had other websites, other programs, but Tukios has been there for me 24/7. They have a great product, and I'm very, very happy with them. You will be too.
What I love most about Tukios is how easy their tools are to use and how professional the results are. Their video tribute software and website management make our life and jobs a lot easier. It allows us to focus on what matters most.
I'm so glad I switched to Tukios for my website for my funeral home. If you like having a constant, steady revenue stream and customer support that is second to none, you'll love the folks over at Tukios.
So I'm Jeff Smith with Smith Family Funeral Home. The thing I love the most about Tukios is you're extremely responsive and you're always innovating, trying to come up with new ideas to help us. I tell everybody I know they should be using Tukios. We use 2 different other providers. Hands down, Tukios is the best.
You know what I love about death care? I love that it is family. And when I think about the Funeral Unconference, I think about our title sponsor, Tukios, and Curtis Funk. So Curtis and I, we kind of like grew up in this profession together. We connected in 2009 for the first time. Love the partnership that we have with Tukios and the Funeral Unconference. They've been the title sponsor for the last 5 years. So thank you for tuning into the Unconference this year. I know that you're getting value, so keep tuned in the rest of the day for all of the panels. Make sure you're downloading the recording when we send that out, because it will be coming out, and make sure you're supporting all of our panelists. If you have a question about one of the panelists, make sure you're reaching out to them. They are all accessible. They will answer your questions. We're excited you're here watching with us. Thank you for being a part of the Funeral Unconference, and thank you to Tukios, our title sponsor, in conjunction with and partnership with connectingdirectors.com and Disrupt Media.
You know Tukios, you know Tukios.
Websites and videos, I'm using Tukios. Everything I need and more, I'm using Tukios. Better than ever before. I'm using Tukios, yeah. Hey, yeah, gonna say it right now. Simple Software did the best now, hands down. Curtis Funk leading. What you know about that commission so high, like Snoop wrote the contract. AI's real good, but the people still real. Call them up, give them love, man. Tell them how you feel. Website's everything, but cookie cutter. It means your site looks better than every other websites and videos. I'm using Tukios, everything I need and more. I'm using Tukios, better than ever before. I'm using Tukios, yeah. Websites and videos, I'm using Tukios, everything I need and more. I'm using Tukios, better than ever before. I'm using Tukios, Chad Romney on the horns now. Get your hands up, get your hands up, get your hands up.
All right, welcome back. I am excited to continue the second half of our day. I've got my friend John LeFrandt here with Elevia. I screwed up the name last year. I don't know what I called
You nailed it this year.
Nailed it. And then we're going to have John, and then we've got an interview with Kevin McKay from Cremation Recycling. Then we're going to get into our panel with travel plan and live streaming, which is going to be good because there's been some questions on that. I do want to address, there's a question, when will recordings be sent out? Recordings will be out by the end of the week for day 1 and day 2. So you'll get all of that this week to be able to watch back through. All right, John, what like let's start with this. Like let's go. I'm gonna softball it. You talked about turning pain into purpose on our in Elevia doing that, but let's talk about your personal story of how you did that and how Elevia was born and why.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the heart and soul of why Elevia and then subsequently For Grief were created. When I was 21 years old, my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer. He was 43. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. Fought cancer for 3 years, and he eventually passed away when he was 46. And that obviously was a massive magnitude event in my life.
Yeah.
And I just have a deep desire to do purpose-driven work. And, you know, we're a very traditional family, did traditional service, and that was all fine. And then you just fall off of a cliff. And I thought, well, maybe that was just us. And then with time, you come to realize that that is kind of the funeral experience for many families, is that, you know, funeral professionals do an amazing job of that time of death and when the service happens, but that baton pass or pointing them in that right direction, just the ball had been dropped there. And that was when I said, let's dive in and let's do something about this. And then we've been on a journey ever since and now helped over 1 million people navigate that first year after loss.
Wow. All right. Just tell us what Elevia does.
So Elevia really is a consumer experience platform is the way I would describe it. We are different than other consumer experience businesses that are out there that serve other industries in the sense that we have live humans. We're powered obviously by technology to do it in mass and at scale, but the heart and soul of what makes Elevia so special is the one-on-one human connection. We have actual live responders, and if I ever need a boost in my day, I just dive into the queue and I watch our amazing team navigate all of those really difficult conversations on behalf of our funeral home partners. And so it's that connection, but then we take that connection and we amplify it to solve a lot of problems. We talked in the panel about Google reviews. We do a lot of grief support through our For Grief campaigns. We've now added estate settlement solutions. We have surveys. We invite people to events. We can do pre-need messaging. Our biggest campaign of the year is during the holiday season. We had over 600,000 messages in our system just in December alone. So really the sky's the limit. We're most known for aftercare, but our partners that have been with us for a while, I tell everyone, it's milk before meat. You know, let's start with the basics, but once they understand the basics of the program, their ideas just become illuminated, and then we can look and get really creative with it and say, how else can we do these same things, but to solve other problems that you have?
So when we work with funeral homes, one of the things we do is look through Google reviews, and there's a name for your partner support.
Elizabeth. Yeah.
Elizabeth. Yes.
Yeah.
It's cool because Elizabeth typically is the highest ranked employee at most of the partners that you work with.
Yeah.
It's funny because we'll see that name in Google reviews, and the funeral home's like, yeah, we don't have anybody Elizabeth that works here. That's our Elevia.
It's a dead giveaway.
It's great.
If you're looking to see what service they're using, yeah.
It's super cool though, but that talks to the experience that the consumer's having.
Yeah.
And you said customer experience. Why is that? Why should that be valuable to a funeral professional? Why do they care about customer experience?
I mean, that's the world that we live in. Think of the type of products and services that you use today. It's not all just about price, right? It's also about the experience. I tell everybody I'm a avid Delta fan. I travel a lot for work and for pleasure, and Delta is the best experience. And so I don't actually go price shop a lot of flights because I know that Delta is going to take care of me. The flights are going to be consistent. They will be on time, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that we do a lot of that. And the world that we live in now, it's increasingly coming in that direction because technology can also curate experiences for people. And so we can both go on the same platform, TikTok being an example, you and I love talking about that, and have totally different experiences based on the type of content that we engage with, and it's curated, and we can both spend the same time there doing that. And so when it comes to funeral service and how we evolve that, it needs to be tailored to the experience of that customer, they will pay for that. And if it is an amazing experience, they will become your raving fan. Then you need to capture that magic and spread it out in the many different omni-channels that you can.
Omni-channel, that's the word of the day. Yesterday was AI, today is omni-channel.
Yep.
So I want to, you and I did a podcast interview a few months ago. You guys served your 1 millionth family. You now partner with over 1,500 different funeral home partners. From serving over 1 million families, what are some of the trends that you're seeing from the family expectation?
Oh, well, it's really interesting. When we do the text messages, for example, I am like still, my mind is blown that the amount of appreciation that the family has for the text, just one text. And they're like, I can't believe you took the time to reach out to me 3 weeks after this. No funeral home has ever done that for us before. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I mean, because it's so simple, right? It's seemingly so simple, but it's that powerful. And it's those little, subtle differences that make all the difference in the world to these grieving families. And so their expectations are low, but when you then talk to them, because you now have an established relationship of trust and you have the right medium in which you can communicate, then the box opens and all of a sudden the floodgates are there and you can learn so much about what they wish they could do or what they would like to do for themselves, or it's all there. And so we have access to that treasure trove of what our future business models need to look like in the next 10 years, but we've got to do the listening to that and just be really intentional. But the data and the answers are right there. The consumers are more than happy to give it, but you just got to do it in the right way and the right time.
So, I mean, Elevia really started as an aftercare company, and you were the first to go the text message solution and engaging families. What have you learned through that process? 1, 2, you have families that text Elizabeth at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., all times, like months after.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, talk about that experience in itself, what you've learned through the process of serving 1 million families.
I've been so grateful that the way my brain works is I just put myself in the shoes of a grieving family. I am an aftercare family in that I lost my dad, and I go, how would I like to be communicated with? How would what things do I wish the funeral home would have done? And that was kind of where text messaging came about. When we first went that route, there was a lot of criticism on it. At first was like, oh, that's so casual. Why would you do that? That's spammy. And then, from the learning standpoint, it's like sticking to your gut on that and going, no, it's human. It's the world in which we live. Here we are 7 years later, and text messaging is still really, really strong, where we're sitting at about a 50% response rate with the campaigns that we do. And sure, we're still getting spam on our phones from politicians or businesses that are trying to give us business offerings and things. But generally speaking, we still all stay on top of our text messages way more than any other medium, right? Like, we stay on top of that. And if you can do that effectively, and again, I can't emphasize enough, human, then it is just so insanely powerful. And there's an art to it for sure, and it's subtle, but our team is obviously now doing millions of messages. We're very proficient at that. We're able to do it just as an extension of our partners. And that's really awesome too, I think, that they don't need to hire and train staff and stay on top of all of those details. We can literally just amplify their impact in a very human way, thanks to technology, but the power of human connection.
Well, and that human connection has allowed you to bridge the gap for different conversations. And you said on the marketing panel that aftercare is kind of the new pre-need. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a bold assertion, but I just feel like aftercare had been that afterthought, and now there's just so much opportunity, and the data clearly shows that that's the case. The industry as a whole has been just hesitant, and I think it's because of the sensitive nature of grief and loss that they feel uncomfortable having those conversations. But again, if you can lean into it, the power of the transcripts of all these text messages, it can embolden you to do a little bit more and to expand and think beyond just the service itself and the products that are there. I think, you know, we do tons of emphasis on the general price list and what's the price of the casket or the urn or this, that, and the other. But again, at the end of the day, if we look at this is a human relationship business, yes, we're taking care of needs that do need products and services, yeah. But if we can look at it as this journey, and how can I be a trusted advisor, a steward, a helpmeet to guide you in this next chapter of your life, then the opportunities are endless. And I think it can be that full circle moment too, where it can still go back to then driving pre-need. Of course, I'm not saying that we should neglect that, but I just think that there's way more emphasis that needs to be there. And progressive funeral homes are going to get really curious about that and say, what can I do so that I can stay relevant in this family's life beyond just the funeral?
I love that. All right, I'm going to ask you this. This was not on your list of questions, so I'm throwing it out. Define aftercare. Like, I feel like we throw aftercare around like confetti. What does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, I ask that question in virtually every meeting I ever have with a funeral home, because I just say, you know, what are you doing for aftercare? And it's bad, you know. I mean, it's just it's what I would say aftercare is for the profession at large is like this monkey on your back that you don't know what to do with is what aftercare has become. It needs to be something. And so there's a lot of people that will just throw spaghetti at the wall and try to see what sticks, or they will pay a minimum amount to check it off of a list and say, there, I did that, and we can wash our hands of it and move on to the next case that's there. What aftercare should be, which maybe isn't the question that you asked, but I think it is, you know, what is in line with your purpose, your vision, your values, and it can be expansive beyond that, but it's getting the family to the next safe spot in their journey. We do ourselves and the families a massive disservice if we just let them fall off of the cliff. I mean, we can solve a lot of problems if we can guide them at least into a trusted, whatever that is, whether it's with grief professionals, et cetera, et cetera. I just think that that's our stewardship and our responsibility. If we do right by the families, we're going to make sure that that transition happens as smoothly as possible with great partners along the way.
John, thank you.
Thanks
for hanging out. Thanks for being a part of this. You've been a part of the unconference
since the beginning.
Since the beginning, yeah. You were one of the first 10.
Yep.
So that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, man.
All right, we're going to move into, I've got an interview with Kevin McKay from Cremation Recycling. Kevin and I have been partners in a lot of different things and ways over the last few years, and I've learned a ton about cremation recycling, and with cremation where it is at, it's an important topic. So let's get into that interview.
Gold is popping off, right? Like, I feel like every gold chain, every gold ring all of a sudden is worth more than it was like a year ago. So let's talk about, like, that's the elephant in the room. Let's talk about gold. What's gold doing, and why does it matter to a funeral home?
Yeah, so gold is popping off, as you put it. Every ring and chain and all that, just gold period, is worth significantly more. In fact, I had a client today who they've sent in, the last 3 times they sent in was November, March, and then just recently. And they're always pretty consistent in what they send in and what we're recovering. And the difference between November was about $2,700 per ounce. Today it's down a little bit, and it's $3,300 an ounce. So you're looking at a $600 to $700 difference for some clients just from 6-7 months ago. So if you had the exact same, if you had 3 ounces of gold in November, and you have 3 ounces today, it's just market alone, it's worth $2,000 more, your settlement. So it's nothing anybody's doing between the crematory and us, and just the market alone is setting these settlements up a lot higher than they were, which is great.
I mean, it is great. And you and I have talked before about like the value of funeral homes and crematories paying attention to the markets, understanding like, but well, because when they send it in matters, right? When they send it to you, that matters. So, talk to me a little bit about your involvement in those conversations with crematories of like hold, send it in, hold, send it in. Like, do you get involved in that?
So we really do. So us as a company, so Cremation Recycling is obviously the cremation division of Mid States Recycling. Mid States is deeply entrenched and involved with the pawn and jewelry sectors and jewelry manufacturers. Pawn shops, this is their business to a large extent. It's not only putting loans out there, but it's also buying gold, for instance. So those guys can definitely sit on it forever. Whereas a crematory is going to have a drum that's got 50 to 100 pounds of heavy metals in there, most of which is non-precious, that they really just want to get out. They just want to have it recycled properly. So it really doesn't come into play. We do offer the ability for, if I'm reporting to a client, we processed your precious metal, we perform the assay, here are the results, and you have 5 ounces of gold, for instance. They don't have to sell it right then and there. And today I'm reminding all of them even more so than I did in the past of, hey, listen, 6-7 months ago, it was $700 an ounce less. So that doesn't mean it's going to be worth more tomorrow. But if you've ever thought about just sitting on it and essentially watching the market, now is the time. So it's not so much that they would or wouldn't send in at a certain time, but once they've done it and they've processed it, they may just not sell it right then and there. And they can hold house with us on what's something called consignment.
That makes sense. I mean, okay. I mean, is that one of the things that set you guys apart?
Yeah, I'm not sure if any of our competitors do it. We, because of the other industries that we service, from our assay reports to the way we, have our open door policy to offering samples from every melt that we do and just very thorough reporting, the other industries that we've worked with for years and decades, in some cases before we even started marketing to crematories, demanded this. So yes, a pawn shop may not want to have the liability in their shop of having 200 ounces of gold just sitting there. So they say, I'm going to give it to Mid States, I'm going to process it, I'm going to confirm I have exactly this much, and it's essentially having money in the bank, or at least gold in the bank. So you don't have the liability of having it in your store, which a pawn shop at any given time is kind of got a bullseye on it. There's stuff literally hanging on the wall that people could steal. But so yeah, I think that's a nice feature that they've always either taken advantage of or not, and now we're just offering that up to our crematory clients as well. So I would imagine it is. I doubt a lot of our competitors offer this, but I can't say for sure.
What are some of the things specifically that set you apart, and why would a crematory want to partner with you over somebody else?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one we get all the time. Obviously, intuitively, I think when somebody is essentially shopping, different services, they want to know what. They hope we always have an elevator pitch, but we really don't. It's some of the things that I talked about there. It's the level of transparency. So our reporting, bar none, is more thorough and comprehensive than any of the reporting I've seen from some of our competitors. We feel as if it's the right thing to do to give a comprehensive analysis of what they've sent in. If it's too much information, in our opinion, it's better than not having enough. And so we've never had anybody complain that it's too much. If they need a little bit of help sort of reading it, that's very different. So I would say the thorough reporting, along with that, we provide a small sample from every single melt that we do, so our clients don't have to take our word for it. They can send it off to another assay lab to verify what we're reporting. And because of all of those things, that results in higher payouts. We just do every time pay higher than any of our competitors.
It's great. It's great. And the payout, I mean, well, the assay report, we've talked a lot about assay reports previously in the past, but I feel like everything kind of comes back to the assay report and really understanding what is in the assay report, but also like what's being reported in the assay report. And at one point you were like, hey, you're getting assay reports back from your current provider. Like, just send us your next load and let's see the difference. And is that still like, you still issue that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's the only way anybody's ever going to have, I was going to say the Pepsi challenge, but I don't know if everybody's going to remember that. But yeah, you have to go side by side. And again, intuitively, somebody wants to give me their last report or two if it's from two different companies. And I can't tell off of that what we would have paid. Because I didn't have my hands on that material, so I have no idea what was actually there. If ever there's going to be anybody sort of, let's just say creative writing as opposed to, comprehensive analysis, it's going to be in the assay report, which is the assay, for anyone who doesn't know, is the process of determining the actual composition. So it will say every single element that's contained in that metal and to what degree or what percentage. So reporting those results is one thing. Reporting those results with a piece of that sample so that they can go somewhere else who doesn't have any stake in it whatsoever to corroborate those numbers is a whole nother thing. And that's what we provide. So to us, that's definitely given a lot of our clients the peace of mind, whether they use it or not. They have it quite literally in their hand, the ability to do that. So yeah, I've seen, this is why I say I've looked at pretty much every one of my competitors reporting, and I have yet to see anybody reporting an actual percentage rather than just putting a number on there to say that you had this much gold, as opposed to the percentage and how much did the bar weigh after it was melted. And these are things that should definitely be on there.
Well, I mean, it sounds like a lot. Like, if I'm a crematory owner, why do I give a rip who I send my precious metals to? Like, why does it matter? Like, if I send them to somebody and I get why do I spend so much time, or why should I care?
Yeah, in fact, a common response that we get is, I just give it all to charity. And that's great. And I think more and more funeral home owners are doing that, at least in part. When they start seeing how much is actually coming in, then they can gauge how, philanthropic did they want to be. But a lot of them are doing that. And what we always say is, if last year you gave $1,000, would you not have rather giving $10,000 if that was a possibility? So even if you're not using it for the business, you should still be aware of what you should be getting versus what you actually are getting. And if you are putting it back into the business, well, obviously you should definitely care where you're sending it to. So the reasons that I'd mentioned, if somebody's going through the process of, trying somebody new, there are tips that I'm happy to share with them, starting with ask whoever you're talking to for comprehensive references. These are people who can say, I've tried other companies and then I tried them and here's the difference. Or I've actually been to their facility. A, I know they have one, and B, it's a substantial facility. I mean, this is the real deal. So get that kind of data first, and then also ask that recycler, hey, can I see a copy of a statement? I want to see what I can expect after I send my metal in. What kind of reporting are you going to give me? And that should help you, make a decision. Do you even want to try that company?
It's great. It's great. All right. What other things outside of gold should we be paying attention to? Or what other precious metals matter?
Well, palladium is the other big one. And 3 years ago, palladium was all we talked about. Palladium actually hit a coincidentally a high of $3,400 an ounce, which is where gold has gotten to now. And then the electric vehicles is what I'm hearing, and it makes total sense. is that's the sort of rise in EVs has driven the price of palladium down. 80-something% of the world's palladium is used in catalytic converters. EVs don't need a catalytic converter. So the demand for it went way down and the surplus of it went way up. So now we're looking at a palladium price that hovers around $950 an ounce. So it had a precipitous drop that, was off the charts. So, but it's still, you have gold at 3,300 today. You have palladium at about 965 today, and platinum, which you have very little of, sometimes none, which is at about $1,050 per ounce. And then silver is, 33 something dollars per ounce. So palladium and gold are your two biggest metals that you're going to be recovering if you're a crematory owner.
All right, we're going to wrap up with this question. What is your single greatest attribute as a company?
I would say the transparency. The transparency leads to everything. Being this transparent, you leave no stone unturned. So when we're reporting the kind of numbers that we do, it's because our practices that are in place lead us to that, which means there's no ability for us to, I'm trying to think of a better way of saying funny business, but there's no room for it. And we really, in the 9 years that we've been marketing directly to crematory owners, our clients speak for themselves. And we love sending, I'll send anybody 2 dozen references of people who will not just say, yeah, they're good. They will speak at length about why they made the decision to make the switch to us and why they would never turn back. So I'd say transparency. It's just a whole lot easier to do business this way. I love educating. I love talking to people, especially in this space where so many crematory owners didn't and still don't really understand what we're talking about. I love taking the time to, explain it to them, and then just seeing them feel like a sense of relief that they finally have an understanding of what's going on.
The understanding is important, and I know you and I have we've interviewed crematory owners that don't work with you in the past, and let them just like pepper you for a half hour with questions, and then all of a sudden they're like, dang, okay, this guy gets it, he knows what he's talking about, we should give this a shot. And it's a great relationship. So I issue that challenge that if you're not working with cremation recycling, that you reach out to Kevin. What's the best way to do that, Kevin?
So our website is pretty easy, cremationrecycling.com. Our number's there. My email is there. I'm the only Kevin here. So my cell number's on there as well. So, reach out to me. As far as that challenge goes, I love it. I would do it every day of the week, honestly. And I don't want to see the questions ahead of time. There's no question that I'm afraid of. So I love doing it. And I think it's really good for other crematory owners to see, even if they don't want to be that person in that, one-on-one. I think it's good content for them to see and experience and hear that kind of sort of town hall kind of experience.
There you go. I mean, if you're watching this and you don't use cremation recycling and you want to throw down the gauntlet and hold Kevin's feet to the fire, please reach out to Kevin, reach out to me, and we will line it up and make it happen.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
Always a pleasure, man.
Hopefully you enjoyed that with Kevin. There was a couple comments. The name of his company is Cremation Recycling, which it's a pretty good name for a company that does cremation recycling. So that's great. All right. I'm excited because I have my friend Dave McComb. I like to call him Grillin' Dave because Dave stood in 114-degree heat yesterday for about an hour and a half in front of a 600-degree grill and cooked 75 hamburgers. So thank you for that.
Now you're welcome. It was fun, and actually it wasn't that bad. You do have those cool little mister things out there.
Yeah.
And lots of help. It was fun.
Awesome.
Great time.
Cool.
Well, honored to be here.
Well, thank you. You and your team have supported the Unconference for years, and you and I do a fun little video segment once a quarter called Talks with Dave. And so we're going to kind of make this like that. But before we get into that, just an introduction, because there might be one newcomer to the profession that doesn't know who you are.
Anyways, my name is Dave McComb, and I am an undertaker. And that name, undertaker, has been probably misunderstood and then misused in the past, and it's about undertaking responsibilities of others. That's where that name came from. And so I consider myself an undertaker because that's what a lot of you folks here do. And I think it's a very honorable thing to do. It's kind of a ministry.
Yeah.
And I love funeral service, and I love making the transition between being a funeral director serving families to being out here and serving my colleagues out in the funeral community. But anyways, beyond that, I am the owner of Inman Shipping and Travel Plan by Inman, as well as Eagles Wings Air. So I love the transportation business. It's exciting. It really is a meaningful part of the entire funeral service, getting a body home for a ceremony.
It's a complicated thing. It's not a straight line.
No, it's not a straight line, and there's a lot of decision points along the way. And then there's also this small little thing called government that gets involved. And you have to deal with the biggest deal is getting a death certificate. That's like the start of everything. But unfortunately, that is part of the process. It's part of our job, and we are making those things as efficient as we can. And I'll tell you a little bit more later about what we have going for later.
Okay. We'll do that later. I said this to Jimmy earlier, like he's a funeral home operator and owner, and then now on the supplier side as well, which you've done that also, funeral home owner and operator, and now doing more on the supplier side. But you've done a lot in death care. What has given you the most satisfaction?
Well, I would have to say probably pre-need.
Okay.
Pre-need is you have to get out there and make it happen. I never liked the scenario of sitting there waiting for a phone call. That is just not part of my personality. I like to go out there and try to make it happen. So early in my career, my dad put me on doing prearrangements because the cemeteries at that time were eating our lunch, selling burial vaults, and then they got into caskets, and that's when he got really concerned. So I was very fortunate to be able to do my internship with this company called Stewart Enterprises.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember them or not, but they're one of their famous cemeteries is Lake Lawn Metairie down in Louisiana. And but I was fortunate to be able to do a 6-week internship with them in Tampa, Florida, at the F.T. Blunt Funeral Home. So it was a really cool start.
That's cool. So when people come into death care, it's interesting, like new companies, new suppliers, new innovation. I get to talk to a lot of those people, but rarely do I talk to somebody that hasn't already talked to you first. So somehow you are visible and findable by people coming into the profession. Like what excites you the most about that and some of the new innovation and things that you see in death care? You have a good pulse on what's happening.
You know what I think is one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time is the guy that went right before me, John. John's got a very innovative thing, and you're right. Aftercare is a monkey on the funeral director's back. What do? Is it a sales situation or is it a consolation situation? And I think what you guys have set up yourself to do is fantastic. I mean, the data you have, man, that's enviable. Truly is. So my hat's off to you. I think that's probably one of the most innovative things I've seen in a while. So well done, really.
All right, I like to ask you this question when we do talks with Dave, and it's very simple. Okay, Dave, what are you seeing in death care? What's new? What's happening? What do you like? What do you not like? What's topical?
And well, I've really enjoyed listening to all the guys here, ladies here. Great group of people, really smart. I hear, the technology things, that's really, really important. At the end of the day, it comes down to execution because you can have the best marketing, you can have the best message, and then they show up at your funeral home, you put the flowers in the wrong chapel, you don't have the ring on the right hand. your guy's late getting off a phone call to go meet with the other guy to take the casket down the center aisle to get to the front of the church to start the service. It's about execution, because that is the thing that is going to deteriorate anything that you've done online if you're not properly executing.
Yeah. Okay. Execution. How do funeral homes get better at execution? What's the solution? I mean, you've ran
Training.
funeral homes. Okay. Training.
Training. We were crazy on training. I had my staff in, I know it's hard to believe, but 13 meetings a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We had funeral directors meeting. We had staff meeting. We had the pre-need staff meeting. We had at-need staff meeting. We had service directors meeting. And we had sales counselors meeting. So those would happen every month. So we were kind of meeting to death, but we did training. And I know nobody likes to do this, but what is really, really effective is role playing. And there's companies out there, and her name is Nicole, and she does this call your funeral home thing and ask you questions, makes you sweat, makes you have a stomach ache. But anyways, I think she's got a really great business. But anyways, role playing is probably one of the most effective things that you can do for your business. Role playing with another staff member about when somebody says, I want a direct cremation, and what do you say next?
Okay. So I'm going to ask this question. As an owner, training, how do you make sure when you are not there, because you've owned multiple rooftops, you've owned big businesses, how do you make sure that that execution is happening?
Well, I suppose you just have to ask. I mean, no, we were there. I mean, we were foot on the ground. Unfortunately, I probably early in my career spent more time working in the business than on the business. But yeah, I think you just have to have a presence there. You have to have accountability.
Okay. What's next? Like, what's next for you? You're always doing cool things.
Well, travel plan is one of the things that we've started to offer over the last 4 years, and it seems to be growing every year. And there was 3 people during the earlier presentations that mentioned either the depression of funeral values, and it was tougher to bring in revenue. Jen talked about it from Batesville. Matt talked about it from Tributes, and Billy talked about it from Matthews. So all 3, great business leaders here in our industry. And one easy way to offset part of the downturn in revenue, regardless of what reason you think it is, cremation or whatever, or just family choices, is choosing a travel plan to include it in your pre-arrangement repertoire. It's a great service to offer for your families. I mean, it's really valuable. When somebody dies away from home, it ends up costing them roughly $400, $500, whatever it is, versus paying maybe $2,500.
Wow. Okay. You also have travel scales here for everybody. I think that's cool. It's a really practical gift.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we had the choice of getting one that was digital or one that was just, plain old scale, just like you'd put your 12-pound trout on. And this one works.
It does work.
And it does not need a battery. So if you're 6-8 months in between travel, hey, you got a scale to make sure you're not over, 50, or if it's the other airlines, it's 40.
So if you travel and you're in the room, you have to get your free Inman travel scale over there because they're great. Best travel scale in death care. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I'm gonna ask you what I've asked almost everybody. Like, what are you most excited about for death care in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Well, I think there's tremendous opportunity out there. And another thing we didn't talk about here is market segmentation. And what market segmentation means is dividing your marketplace into various kind of groups. And if you've been to California, you can see what some of our funeral director brethren have done out there with the Asian community. And they've recognized that the Asian community honors their family members, their fathers, their grandfathers, and so forth. And they've engaged the ceremonies that they like to do. And they've done very, very well. And that's a pocket of interest that many people are pursuing at this moment, because there's no amount of money that an Asian family won't spend to honor their family. And I think that's quite a beautiful thing. And, other parts of our humanity that we live in could probably do the same. The Hispanic market has grown tremendously. To not look at these groups individually and market to them in a way that is interesting to them is really kind of missing the boat.
Yeah.
So I think those are the great opportunities out there for many funeral directors.
Okay. Well, any parting words?
Yes, if you don't have a good contact management system, good database, and if you're not keeping good notes on every client you talk to, you're missing the boat. Every contact, every person you talk to, there should be a place where you can put notes in the notepad section of the database to recall that conversation down the road. So the next time you talk to them, you're not a stranger, you're a friend.
Love it. Dave, thank you. Do not go anywhere because you are on our next panel. So our next panel, we've got Sepio Guard, OneRoom, and MemoryShare. So we're going to talk about some live streaming, and we're going to talk travel. We'll probably talk about some socks. So come up here, grab a seat. I'm going to scoot down one. There's a mic there. And everybody's probably going like, why do we have two travel companies and two live stream companies on the same panel? And we called this our service panel because it's really awkward, I think, when you have just two of the same company. Like there's not enough conversation to go around. So we're making conversation here. There's value in the services that you all offer. And so we're going to do some introductions, but I'm sorry to those that are online only because we've got free travel scales, but we also have Sepio socks, and Sepio has made custom socks for the unconference. You're giving me a pair? Let's go. For the last couple years. So super cool, very comfortable socks. So if you were here, you would get these, but you're not, and I'm sorry. But you're giving away socks to the first 50 people in the chat that register through a link, and our team will throw the link in there as we get going. So that's awesome. All right, let's just go down the line. We'll start down here with Brady and go to down the line introductions and company and what you do.
I'm the CEO of OneRoom Streaming. Well, our customer-facing team is in Houston, but the technology comes from New Zealand, which is why I sound kind of funny. You might not have seen me before. I'm less than a year in the industry, but I'm old enough to have been in quite a few industries, and I think this is actually my most enjoyable stint in my career. This industry is full of opportunity and does wonderful things, so I'm enjoying it. Thanks for the invite for this.
All right, and my name is Jeff Glassey. I'm with Sepio Guard. A little bit of a background about me. So I've actually fairly new to the funeral profession. I worked for the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office. I was in law enforcement for 20 years. I retired. I just found that I really enjoyed helping people. And as I came into this profession, it's the same mentality of just really reaching out and helping those that come around. And one other little plug. So I'm also a dude dad.
Let's go, dude dads. I'm a girl dad,
Yeah.
so I don't know anything about being a dude dad.
Yeah, no, I have 4 boys, just like Jamie over there. And one of the proudest moments of my life was when my daughter-in-law rolled her eyes when my son just gave the best dad joke. You know, I thought, wow, I've passed it on. So anyway, so that's a little bit about me. Again, I'm with Sepio Guard. We're the Away From Home Assurance company.
Awesome. Dave.
Yeah, Dave McComb, little different introduction this time. My beliefs similar to you. God's first, my wife's second, my family's third, and my country's after that.
There you go. Everybody else can figure it out
Yeah,
after.
you can figure out the rest. But anyways, yeah, once again, honored to be here with all these smart people and in front of all these people online. This is pretty awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Kyle Fogarty and co-founder of MemoryShare. We're out of Dallas. We've been working with funeral homes since 2012, and like OneRoom, full service streaming company, and pumped to be here as well. This is my favorite event that I've been to, I think.
Let's go. Come on, man. This is your first time, too, so thank you. And you've been a great supporter of Connecting Directors, and we get to do some fun content with you in our Friday email, which is fun. And so here's something that's cool. Like, I remember I think it was like 2008 2008 or 9 was my first NFDA convention, and I feel like there were like 12 different live stream companies at that point. Like, I don't know that any of them are still here. Like, live stream has been this conversation that I feel like it's just like ebbed and flowed, and it was like, oh, well, we'll just do Facebook Live, and then Facebook starts deleting live videos after so many days, and like that's not a good solution. And like, I feel like there's just been this conversation, and so I want to start with you, Kyle. Let's just get into like what this wasn't one of the questions, but I'm going to ask you both, like, why is live streaming even important?
I have filmed a lot of things. I used to work in the film industry and filmed a lot of stuff that didn't matter, like commercials or, film some car or whatever. But funerals really matter. And there's things that are said at services that will never be said again, or stories that are shared that will never be said about that or have never been heard before. And as time has gone on, I think that preserving these memories for people is crucial. And we hear over and over how a lot of times, families, it's a blur for them that day. And so they get a chance to relive or rewatch the service later. And it's a really, really important piece for healing. My own mother watched her mom's service for weeks afterwards, at least once a week as she was healing from losing her mom. So I think about that a lot. Why should services be recorded? If a service exists, it should be recorded. It's a really important thing for everybody that's there. And we're seeing a lot now that the physical attendance is being surpassed by the digital attendance. And in my head, you are pretty much cutting off the chance for 50% more people to not only see what your funeral home offers, but to participate and be there with the family. So if a service occurs, and I'm probably biased, it needs to be recorded. It should be recorded. Yeah.
I get Brady.
Yeah, I think if you see value in holding a funeral service, then you should see value in expanding the number of people that can be a part of it, right?
That's important.
So that's primary. And then secondarily, the industry talks a lot about, and we've talked a lot about in these panels, the decline of revenue per case. This adds real value to the family, and you can charge for that every single time. And there's a lot of peripheral things around it that actually improve the business. So there's a lot of good common sense business benefits in streaming everything.
So is the recording of the service more and on demand more valuable than the live stream itself? And I want to pose that question to Dave as well, because Dave, you've operated funeral homes, so you have experience with offering families live streaming. So can I have you answer that question first?
Sure. And live streaming for us was not chosen very often. I don't think the options were available that are there today, but we did have live streaming at least once a week. And for people that are out of the country, it was fantastic, so they can see the service.
That's great. Okay, let's talk about out of the country. Jeff, what challenges face funeral homes when they've got to get a body from A to B and it's out of the country? And like, what are some of those challenges for not only the funeral home, but the family as well?
So that's actually kind of the whole core reason why away from home assurance is a thing, is people can pass away from home, especially we'll talk about out of the country, right? There's a lot of language barriers. Funeral home directors, funeral homes understand that it can turn something that's really simple, like a pre-arrangement, into a really complicated scenario, right? So that's why away from home assurance is important to be in every funeral home. If you don't have an away from home assurance membership program with your funeral home, you really should tap into that. So, I mean, we all understand those complications. They're going to be language barriers, time zones, communication. And you're already dealing with families that they're struggling because they've had a loved one pass away. Now they've passed away out of the country or away from home. As a funeral home with an away from home insurance program, you can rest assured that one phone call to Sepio Guard or an away from home assurance is going to handle all of that. We're going to take care of all of the logistics to get that person back. Now, I'm going to go off script a little bit here, right? So, and Bryce is one of the co-founders of Sepio Guard, forgive me, but one of the things that we pride ourselves on, Sepio Guard, is working with funeral home directors, funeral homes. It's not really black and white with us all of the time. This is kind of what I've noticed. I've been in this industry or this profession for 5 years now, but this is a very small, connected network. Just over 5 years, I've gotten to know so many people, and we run into each other all of the time. There are funeral directors that are the same. They know people in different states. They know funeral homes. They know other funeral directors. And these funeral directors, they want to work with these families. We're not going to take this away from those funeral directors and say, hey, I mean, we can do that, and we pride ourselves on that, and that's what we do, is we take care of these situations. However, there are some funeral directors that are like, I want to be involved. I know somebody in, we'll say, Oklahoma, that owns a funeral home. I want to work with that funeral home. And we work with those families and those funeral homes on a one-on-one basis. Each family, each situation is different to us, and we're not black and white. We work with those families. So that's really important for us. That's just part of the experience, because really that's why we're all in here to do this, is we're working with tragedy. We're working with heavy things, and we're happy to step in, and we're happy to take care of that. We're also happy to let you as a funeral director be the hero. We can be in the background, and we'll take care of those things, but you be the hero.
It's great. It's great. Dave, I want to come to you. What's something that makes your travel plan unique to funeral service?
Well, then what makes ours unique is in 1978, Inman shipping started. So it's been, I don't know, a long time since that started. And Bob Inman was one of the innovators in this industry, and he had a plan way back when called the Omega Plan. And the Omega Plan didn't sound very good, so we changed the name. Kind of sounds like calling it death insurance rather than life insurance. So we changed it to Travel Plan by Inman. And Inman controls the entire process here, controls the pickup of the body, whether it's here in the United States or in any other countries. In the United States, we have 750 service providers and another couple hundred outside the United States. So when somebody dies, we have a relationship with who is going to be picking up the body. We have a contractual relationship, and they are to follow standards that we give to them. And those standards were set up by Vernie Fountain, who is a consultant and a professional witness in cases in the funeral service that involve embalming. So we have his blessing on our standards, and we also have Scott Gilligan, who used to be the NFDA counsel. He also took a look at the legal and approved the legal in ours. And so we have Eagles Wings Air that takes care of the logistics of shipping the body by air. So we are in control of the entire process. It doesn't, no part of it is sent out to third parties. And then lastly, what makes us different is our plan is backed up by insurance. That's the same insurance company that insures doctors and dentists.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to ask a question that I feel like is applicable to everybody. So what is the best way to offer your services? So Dave, you talked about training and the amount of time you spent training your staff. I imagine part of that was the arrangement process and conversating with families. So from a live streaming perspective through Travel Plan, I'll let individually, we'll start with Kyle and just go down the line. What's the best way to offer your services to families for funeral homes?
There's been a few ways I've seen it successful, both post and pre-pandemic. It kind of depends on what you want for the funeral home. You know, do you want your traffic the most? Are you trying to generate a little revenue on each stream? We'll see it as a line item. So, you know, you can mark it as $300 and then the family knows exactly what it costs. You can put it in a memorial package, put it in your better and your best package. That's been really successful as well. And the other one, there's a lot of our directors now, though, that have completely, record as many as they can because they want that traffic, and they're seeing the traffic that's coming to the site. And I could really go on about that. Maybe we'll circle back about the marketing piece, but those are the ways that I see it. And there's also a culture shift, like Dave's saying about training. Hey, this is what we do here. This is part of what we do here. And if you don't want us to put it online, that's no problem. We'd like to record it. Make sure that this can be captured for you. If you change your mind later, great. So that's how we see it. Offer it for everybody, win your market, or a line item, and go along that way.
All right, Brady, I'll go to you to answer that on the live streaming side, and then Dave, then Jeff.
Yeah, sure. I think some of the more successful I've seen recently have actually put it into the CPL. They've built it into their core price list and empowered their funeral directors to understand the benefits to the family. And then it's an opt-out process. And I can back that with some decent-sized experiment that was run, I guess, with one of our larger customers, talking hundreds of sites. A good chunk of them used to sell every single service with a stream, is sort of mandated, and they did 6 streams a month. The other part, they didn't sell them at all. They gave them away. Exactly the same company. The other group was, again, mandated to do it with training, and they did exactly the same amount of streams, but they sold every single one of them, right? And so putting it into the core price list and then showing a little bit of the value, and then having the customer, the consumer, pull it out is by far the easiest way to go about selling.
Great perspective.
Yeah,
I like that. All right, Dave, what's the best way to offer a travel plan?
Best way to offer travel plan is through our funeral service colleagues around the country. Also, the cemetery folks that have prearrangements. A lot of small cemeteries don't. Government cemeteries, church cemeteries, they don't. But we work with cemeteries that offer their plans to their communities, and through just funeral directors and through third-party marketers. That's typically how it's been done for quite a long time. And as far as online goes, there are online sales of it, but it's always through a funeral director or through one of our people that distribute our product.
Jeff?
And same with Dave, right? So we work with prearranged agents every day. That's actually what I do at Sepio Gardens. I'm the director of training, and as I'm looking at my schedule this last couple hours for tomorrow, I've got 10 or 15 trainings tomorrow with agents. So what we do is we really reach out to those pre-need agents. Dave mentioned cemeteries are huge right now. Cemetery, they don't really have this, they don't have the travel plan, the away from home assurance idea behind them. When in fact, when people are purchasing these spaces, of course they want to be back here at your cemetery. So why not include this away from home assurance every single time? So that's really what we focus on, is your pre-need agents, training. Of course, we do have some online sales, very small, but we put in technology. Those agents have an app that they can sell through this app. And when they're meeting with these families, again, it's just really about including it every single time.
It's good. Okay, we have a live stream specific question, and then I want to get back to a question for all of you because it's been kind of a topic. But are there any ways to ensure a stable connection for live streams in rural areas? I don't know. You guys, I went to Kyle to start this off, so Brady, we'll go to you first.
I mean, it's called the internet, right? So no promises, no promises there. And I think the answers are all telco answers. So Starlink has proven to be pretty useful if you dig on Tesla, on Elon. Very, very strong cases for that around the world. But I think the real answer's got to be, what's your backup? Because any internet connection can cut out at any time. And so, we put a lot of effort into having SD cards in all the cameras so that it immediately just records everything anyway, and you can upload it afterwards. So at least you've captured that keepsake properly. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, nothing really to add there, but Brady just nailed it. As long as you get a recording, it's going to be fine. We've had calls with people that can barely be on the phone while they're in a brick church in a rural area. And it's like, I promise you, you're not going to be able, the stream is not going to work. Like I can barely even hear you. we cannot push video. Just record it. We'll take care of this later. And then you should be ready for that. Directors know their locations a lot better than we do as OneRoom or MemoryShare. So if you know you're going to a stone church in a cornfield somewhere, do not tell the family it's going to be live.
Yeah.
We're going to record this. We'll take care of this later.
Okay. Great answers. AI is something we've talked about both days heavily, and I don't know that there's any facet of deathcare that isn't going to be impacted, affected, benefit, whatever from AI. So, Brady, I'm gonna run it back to you. How does AI play a role in your space? And then I'm gonna just come down. We're gonna come right down the line, and everybody answer that question because I think it's applicable.
We've got a long answer to that one. It impacts it pretty hard, right? So, we've been doing this for about 15 years now. Actually, both of us have been doing this for 15 years. And most of the innovation over that time has been to improve the quality of the stream or to make the life easy for a funeral director actually running the stream, make it as easy as possible. And I think we sort of, we went as far as we could on that. AI recently helped us to the point where now all you need to do to set up the administration for a stream is type in the decedent's name. And when the service occurs, the cameras will go on and the cameras will go off at the end of the service. So it's, amazing. AI has enabled that. And so, the innovation that comes from the next phase that AI has enabled is around the video. So we think there's a lot of opportunity there. At the moment, the video is a keepsake, as Kyle was talking about. You keep it forever. Even if you've been in the service and you've witnessed it, you forget actually, or you don't know, you're in a fog actually what happened. So you look at it later on, it's a high value. So what we've realized is that over half, and again Kyle referenced this, over half of the people that actually see a stream are actually watching it after it's happened. So they're watching a video, not a live stream. AI is good with video. And so, we're taking that keepsake and completely reinventing it. So, bring it up to basically modern ways to consume it. So think Netflix, think Facebook Reels, think Instagram. People are used to seeing video in a different way. And so, we're putting a lot of effort into that. The problem with video as it stands today is that you get a copy of it on a thumb drive and you provide it to the immediate family. And the immediate family might watch it a couple of times, but no one else has got access to that. And the other thing is that when they watch it, it's a flat file. And so it's literally an hour, 20-minute long video that you need to sort of scroll through to try and get to the bits that you want it to get to. So we're reshaping all of that. So now we're taking that hour and 20 and we're dividing it up into chapters so that you jump into the bits you want to go to. So the eulogies, the religious scripts that have been read, the tribute by Justin, the nephew, right? And you can see those chapters and just go straight to the bit that you want to watch. And then what that allows us to do is go, well, hang on, Justin's tribute was actually quite entertaining. And he tells a story about how the uncle, rode the horse down Main Street, wearing briefs in the middle of the night. And, that's an entertaining story. AI identifies all of that in our models. And so we can jump straight to 3 or 4 highlights in those videos, right? You take that one step further, there's 30 seconds inside Justin's tribute that you want to share with the world. And so we will be able to make those shareable through Facebook Reels, I think they're calling it now, on Instagram and socials, probably for the first time, taking those highlights and actually sharing them amongst the community.
That's cool. Do you offer that now?
So no.
Okay.
So that's been our roadmap for the last 10 months.
Okay.
And we're in testing on nearly all of that.
Awesome.
So it's coming soon, but that's AI all over it.
That's awesome. I have a follow-up question to that, but I want to stick with the AI conversation. Jeff, Dave, we'll start with Jeff. How is AI impacting travel plans? Is that possible?
I mean, we really implement technology, and we're adopting AI. What I see us doing with AI is being able to capture these pre-need agents, get them so that as I meet with them one-on-one, whether over Zoom or face-to-face, but AI can help to get them captured, to understand the importance of meeting with me, to go through this training, this process. At Sepio Guard, we adopt and we love technology and growth and innovation. And so, I mean, I just kind of like the future is, it's just wide open. And so we're excited to see what it's going to bring and capture.
AI, I see, is a great tool for handling lots of printed information. So when we deal with other countries, embassies, and so forth, they have a lot of documentation. Sometimes it's not in English. As we know, Grok or ChatGPT or Perplexity, you can download documents into those and search for certain phrases, words that's going to help you to find the answer quicker than having to read through regulations of some country that maybe you've never shipped a body from. So that is that's a big plus, because it handles voluminous amounts of information very quickly and points out things that would normally take you hours to do. Technology-wise, we love technology on the side of documents and the processing of a body, and making sure that the person gets from point A to point B, keeping everybody notified. We're incorporating QR codes. It's going to be on documentation. It's going to be on the outside of the container, and it automatically will make a impression and send an email to the people that are interested in the progress of the body, from where the person died to where the person's going to be going to having a ceremony.
Good. It's good.
Same for us. We're doing features, and we think the shareable piece is a big deal. And then we're also working with it to better enhance captions. And you have a couple of moments when there's somebody who's deaf watching a stream, and all they see is picture, and we don't like that. So we've been working with AI. It's been accelerating features for us.
Okay. Love it. All right. I've got a question that everybody can answer, and then I've got a specific question for Brady. How can your services collectively enhance the pre-arrangement services? And Jeff, I'll start with you.
So as somebody walks into the funeral home or is wanting to pre-arrange, ultimately, we know that what they're doing is they're wanting to get this peace of mind of knowing that everything will be taken care of, right? So, and it's kind of been a buzzword, I think, this conference, other than the omni-channel. Yeah. It's the experience, right? So we have this experience that people are walking in or calling or getting this set up. They want to have this experience in all aspects of their lives. Believe it or not, even in pre-arranging your own funeral. If you create this experience, it's important for these families and for these individuals who are pre-planning. So as someone walks in there, they're making this decision. I'm going to take care of all of these tough decisions so that my loved ones don't have to. They're going to be under stress. This is all going to be taken care of, right? Now, most of these pre-arrangements, unfortunately, are based on if somebody dies locally. So when your pre-arrangement starts talking about, hey, there's a couple things we can't predict, right? Number one is we can't predict when we die, but also we can't predict where we die. So as that comes up in this pre-arrangement, it just starts turning this into not just a service that the funeral home provides. We're now thinking outside the box. This pre-need agent is saying, hey, we've thought about all of the scenarios, and we know that people have passed away from home, and it has become a nightmare. Even though you've pre-arranged, you didn't take care of this very vital, important piece of what if I died away from home? A lot of people are away from home, right? So you look at all of us in this room right here, well, most of us are 75 miles or further from our homes. People are visiting their kids and their grandkids. People are going on vacation and they're traveling. But when the pre-arrangement experience adds this in and helps those families think, I never really thought of that. But I'm glad you've brought this up. You've now created an experience so that you're a trusted funeral home. This agent is talking about my family and all of the possible situations. So I would say that by offering this every single time, giving them the option to say no to the very best, enhances that experience so that the family can walk away knowing that their decision to prearrange is supported by this funeral home. I feel secure, I feel confident, and I'm supported in my decision as I leave this funeral home, knowing that no matter where, anywhere, anytime, no matter where I pass away, my family doesn't have to stress about those decisions.
Dave?
I would agree. It's in prearrangement. The reason why one prearrangement counselor might not sell as many monuments as another one is maybe they just don't offer it. And that's the same way a travel plan. Here's a couple hints for travel plan sales. I'm going to even give them to my competitor here. So, and that's cool. But it should be included in your document. If you're serious about selling travel plans, it should be on the statement of funeral goods and services in the lower half. It should be there. And secondly, if you die locally, it's one price. If you die anywhere in the world, it's another price. And there's the two simple ways to offer this and to sell it and get results. And anyways, I think that's
a good answer. Offer it. Brady or Kyle, do you have a different answer than just offer live streaming as part of the prearrangement conversation?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You want to go first?
All right.
No, you go. I'm a gentleman.
I think that aside from when a death occurs, the only other time that somebody's really thinking about their own mortality is when they're watching a service.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. Yeah, maybe I should plan mine. Or man, we really like what this funeral home did. Oh, they set up a bowling alley? This is cool. I want this for us. That's immense. And so being able to have these digital impressions not slip through the cracks is a huge deal, I think, within how pre-need can help. Or I'm sorry, how live streaming can help pre-need.
Yeah. Excellent. Brady?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to get specific on it, people are watching these services for circa an hour. They feel engaged. They do interact with buttons on our screens.
Okay.
And so 1.5% to 2% of all people that view a service will actually request information about pre-need. So the good quality leads coming from every single stream. Yep.
Love it. All right. Kyle, do you have any examples of funeral homes grabbing or getting more market share because they're offering live streaming?
We did run some case studies, 2023 and 24, and it's anecdotal. It is tough to find that specifically, but a lot of those directors that we spoke with, one guy specifically in Kentucky had said, he's 2 locations, and he believed that live streaming attributed a 10% growth for him, and that was fantastic. We loved hearing that, and for his call volume, that was a really big deal. And in my mind, you can have this stream on your site, and every single person that's watching that is on your site and not your competitors. And this is a wonderful way to stay top of mind in your market.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, nothing scientific enough to quote, but certainly enough feedback about the same sort of thing. Another aspect to gaining market share is awareness. Every single time someone registers for a stream with OneRoom at least and completes their details, you are building up a community of people in your broader digital base, right?
Yeah.
And so that awareness has been used effectively by churches and by large homes around to build up enormous databases of
guys like me love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'll stick with you, Brady, real quick, and then Kyle, maybe you can piggyback off this. Ponyback. I don't know what that is. Piggyback. I think one of the hardest things with live streaming and sharing it socially, and you're talking about creating chapters and moments, is copyrighted music, because music is played throughout the service. So how are you addressing that in what you're doing? Is that a problem? Does AI help with that? Like, let's walk down that road.
Yeah, I believe it's been a question long before I turned up, but when I turned up, it was floated as something that needs to be looked into. So as an incoming CEO of one of the large platforms, I did get quite a lot of legal advice on that. And yeah, I mean, you know, the good news is that the licenses that ICCFA and NFTA offer homes, they do cover you to play music in a service and to stream it, which is great. The grey area is and if you actually record any copyrighted music, no matter how you do it, you need a synchronization license, which my advice is it's quite a different kettle of fish. I don't know that people have those in our sector. So it's probably more grey. It's probably more an inconvenient truth than grey, actually. It's pretty clear. And so I did, coming back to the roadmap, we kicked that off some time ago. And again, coming back to AI, we will now be muting copyrighted songs in our recordings and listing them in the subtitles as, you know, muted for copyright reasons. This is the name of the song, and providing a playlist so that people can either choose to listen to that song right now, so they know why everyone's sitting listening, or you know, access it for the bake or the barbecue later on. We provide them with a nice little playlist. So to be clear, we're not deleting any audio outside of the audio file for just the copyrighted songs that are sort of in breach.
That's great.
The difference is, I guess, you know, I was talking to Curtis earlier. He was doing this 15 years ago,
yeah,
manually for every single one of them. We're applying automation across all of our services, 60,000 services, to do that now. Yeah.
Which is great because that'll help with the shareability of it. Like that's really been the hard part of a live stream is the shareability factor of funeral homes can't do a whole lot with it. So
exactly. So that, you know, the immediate family gets a copy of it, as I said earlier. Now we can actually broadcast to people that there is a way to subscribe to get hold of all this quality keepsake.
Yeah.
And everybody can be relaxed about the fact that no one's going to be in breach.
Love it.
Yeah.
Kyle, you have anything to add? Beautiful.
Nailed it.
Okay, there's a simple question. I don't think that it's simple because this could go all over the map, but like what cameras work best for live streaming? I mean, sure, everybody could get Reds. That'd be dope, but I don't think that's...
That would be awesome. It varies like crazy. It's like the Wild West. I mean, it's anything you want. I think the way to get in, the bare minimum is mobile device. You could spend anywhere from $5 to $50,000 on a camera system, but I do believe that production value really matters. And you know, the better the production value, the better your first impression, potentially the higher amount of pre-need leads, more trust online. You present yourself as you've got it together, and you're providing special services. So I do think cameras really matter. Whether you go fixed or mobile or both, I think you should have a combination of both, and then figure out the right ways to work with your churches as well. Like
yeah,
your software should be able to integrate with their system as well. So
so you know, in our instance, when you go mobile, it's an Apple device. Is still the best for you know, convenience in a whole lot of ways, but we're mostly fixed cameras in chapels, and there's a misconception around, you know, super high quality is what you need to be going for. You can't, per the internet discussion earlier, you can't be streaming 8K. 4K is even a challenge in a lot of cases, so it doesn't need to be super high resolution video stream, and so the cameras need to be thinking more about reliability for tenure. So we put in cameras that'll last 5 years plus. That's the thing that people need to be thinking about, probably.
Love it. And I think you had a resource on understanding copyright music and funeral recordings, and we'll drop the link in there. You mentioned the synchronization license. How affordable is that? That was a question in the stream.
Was that how affordable is that? It's a long story, and I should really have disclaimed I'm not here to provide legal advice. I am in America, so you know, I won't get into that. But the explanation to me was it's just not an option as an organization that does this for you know.
Great. So. Awesome. Great panel. Thank you all for being here. Dave, thank you for cooking lunch yesterday and the free luggage scales.
How to do it.
Jeff, thank you for the custom unconference one of a kind, Sepio socks.
Absolutely. Number one, socks in the death care space.
Yes,
you know?
from a company
Yeah.
that doesn't sell socks. So that's you're not a sock company.
How often do I get that question? So do you sell socks? I'm like, no, we don't sell socks.
Well, daggone it. You know, there's a retirement plan for you.
I
so
know,
sorry.
right? There we go.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right.
Thanks,
okay.
Ryan. Pleasure to be part of this. Thanks.
We are going to move into our last panel of the day, and there's some fluidity with this one. Are we all good? Like, do we have Antonio? Do we have Jen? Does anybody know? Yes? Awesome. Okay. So let's you and I sit here. So we're centered up. Okay, this is a big conversation. We're going to be talking about licensing, and daggone, licensing's a big conversation. And so while we wait for them to pipe Jen in, Jen is funeral director on the East Coast, and she's going to be joining us to have this conversation because I think it's important. Two funeral directors from two different states where laws are different. Having this conversation, but introduce yourself again if anybody didn't see you yesterday.
So, Antonio Green, the fourth generation funeral director at James H. Cole Home for Funerals in Detroit, Michigan. We're a 106-year-old firm this year. And yeah, just like yesterday, I was talking a lot about AI, so I'm super into technology, into death care. And valued resource for many. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, like we said yesterday, feel free to bounce anything off the wall that you want to talk about.
Okay, cool. Jen, are you with us? Hey, thank you for making the time. I know you're in the midst of serving some family, so thank you so much.
No problem. It was a great conversation. I'm happy to have it with you and Antonio. Nice to see you, Antonio.
Yeah, great to see you.
Let's go. So Jen, give us a quick introduction to who you are, what you do, and why this conversation is important to you.
So I'm Jen Graziano. I have funeral homes in both New York and Connecticut. I'm a fourth generation funeral director as well as an attorney. I serve on a state board, and over the past couple of years, I've become more passionate about writing and advocating for the industry and kind of seeing some of the problems that plague us truly from the inside and trying to work from the inside out to help bring change and revolutionize the way we think as funeral directors.
I love it. I love it. And I love this topic. You and I have had a lot of conversation about this. It's a conversation everywhere I go and travel. And so it's not really been brought to the forefront in any capacity that I've seen. So I'm excited to kind of have this conversation here, break the ice. But Connecting Directors does a survey every year. And one of the questions we ask is like, what's the biggest pain point for funeral homes? And for the last, I want to say 4 years consecutive, the number one pain point has been employee retention and then finding employees, finding funeral directors that are coming into the profession. So we're going to have this conversation because I think a lot of that has to do with licensing. It's really hard to be a funeral director, and there's some things that don't necessarily make sense. So I'm gonna pose this question to both of you, and then we can just go back and forth. And if you have questions, throw them in the chat. We'll do our best to get to them if you have comments or thoughts on this. But what changes need to be adopted in order to attract individuals to the industry who are best suited to serve families?
So that's an interesting one because a lot of times people, especially younger folks who are going into mortuary school and think this is the profession for them, they're actually not a good fit. Or they may be a good fit for embalming, and that's what they're interested in, but not necessarily to meet with families. So, but the license structure now in a lot of states is set up where it's a unified license, so you have to do embalming. I may just want to meet with families. I may just want to direct services, but you have to have the embalming piece, and that's pulling people out that would be good fits. That is kind of limiting who we can get and who we can bring in. And also that goes back to the mortuary schools as well, as being able to educate more so those when they come into the mortuary school is saying, is this the right fit for you? When I was in mortuary school, it was almost a weed out process the first semester to make sure this is going to be a good fit for you. This is what this is what the industry looks like. This is what your work life is going to look like. Are you okay with this? And I think a lot of mortuary schools have gotten away from that across the board. I've seen, because that's why we're having people that are coming into the industry that they get to the funeral home, they finish mortuary school and go apply for the job. They have an interview, and you're looking at them across the table like, do you know that this is a pretty conservative industry you're coming in? You can't come in with purple hair and sit in front of family. So I'll get off my soapbox on that. But yeah.
Jen, do you have anything to add to that one?
To piggyback off Antonio, I think collectively we need to realize that there are two very different skills that are represented in the funeral industry. Public relations, people skills are paramount. Who is sitting with your families is paramount. First of all, they're raising the bottom line of the funeral home. Who you have at that arrangement conference table makes all the difference. The second aspect is the clinical aspect. Both parts are equally of relevance, but they're not the same. And we need to recognize that what served us 50 years ago to unify these skills under one license doesn't serve us today. The rising workforce, the rising generation, they're not the same generation that rose up again even 10 years ago. We don't even have to go back that far. So it would behoove the industry and the state boards and the regulators to recognize that we need two different types of people. Not a commentary that one is better than the other, not a judgment, but we need to be mindful as we move through and we see every funeral home sees this tidal shift of services. Even your most traditional funeral homes. I represent the Northeast market. That was the bastion of traditional funeral service. It's really not anymore. So as trends kind of sweep across our industry, we need to be mindful that not every funeral director needs to embalm. There's certainly not a call for it as it was, in years past. Not to say we don't need it, but we need to recognize that we need leaders to come in here and who are going to recapture that lost bottom line and help educate our families through the process of arranging a funeral.
Okay, this is a loaded question. The change that is needed to occur, do you think that we can get there with the current mindset or without a mindset shift of the current leadership?
So, I'm gonna, in my limited capacity, again, as I do serve in an official capacity, the current mindset is not going to work. And I get it. I'm a traditionalist. I change doesn't come easily to me. But I am at a point where I recognize the need for it. If we don't look outside the box, no pun intended, for a different wave of applicants into the business, we're really only going to hurt ourselves. We need to look more into the hospitality field, people who have considered event planning as a career. We need those people to start taking an interest in our field. Number one, they're going to be ready to work the nights and weekends that this work life generation balance, at least from my vantage point, they're not ready to do. And we need people that have communication skills, looking someone in the eye, sitting across from a table, sales, conversation, compassion. There's so much that goes into that arrangement conference, and I keep going back to that conference. And those skills also transpose into the directing of a funeral. It carries through, building that bond and relationship with the family. We're not going to find that unless we look for people that are people persons.
Yeah, and the mindset change is something that affects our industry across the board, even when it comes to technology adoption, making change, period, within the business. It's extremely hard. I mean, it's harder than pulling teeth to be able to get the industry as a whole, or even some of those industry leaders, to change that thinking. But you have to, in order to evolve, in order to grow the industry, grow your business, you have to keep changing. Even if it's a slow process, you have to be willing and open to change. I think that was this morning. I think I was talking to Maddie, and we were saying how that mindset has to change. I mean, some things are fine to think, traditionally, but are we hurting ourselves? And that's what we're talking about is what if, okay, so like I just said, I stereotype somebody coming in for an interview with purple hair and they're getting shut down. But does that matter to the consumer anymore?
Yeah,
Do
very true.
your families coming in, do they even mind someone? Do you have to be in a black suit?
Right.
What if you get the Obama tan suit and you're coming down? Like, are they fine with that? Or do they want you to dress in a color that matches their color scheme?
Right.
They want you to be in a bright pink suit because mom loved pink. So we have to be willing to think outside the box just a little bit and be willing to be uncomfortable with yourself and with the business, because you may learn that the consumer, your clients, don't care about those traditional things. Now, some fine, yes, some are going to want that, but be willing to ask them up front and find that out.
Yeah, like what's the majority?
Right.
What's the majority care about? Okay, so I mean, if we're talking about people coming into the profession, so I think it's a two-part question. Does licensing requirements need to change? And should licensing requirements be uniform across every state?
Jen, you want to go into that one?
No, I've done a lot of research on this from a committee that I was on. For the most part, it's not a homogeneous or even the semblance of a homogeneous look between states. There's a lot of disparity. My neighboring state of New Jersey just went through a major progressive change that I think really benefits the industry, but we're not it shouldn't be that different between different states because the crux of what we do is not much different. Put it this way. What I see coming out of school and what licenses are what most states are failing to recognize is there's two different paths to service. You see a lot of people going down a trade service path where they want to be removing, they want to be embalming. And then on the other side of that, there are people who want to be at the arranging table and they want to be on the funeral. The current licensing model does not lend itself to these two different individuals. I'm a big proponent of education. We want a litmus test. We don't want people running rampant through our industry without the proper training. I'm a big believer that even if you don't want to be an embalmer, you need to have some semblance, some modicum of knowledge about the process so that you can speak to your families intelligently when there's questions of viewability that arise. But I think that, in my personal opinion, for what it's worth, we need to recognize, again, these are two different people applying for these two different positions. We need to therefore back up one step to adjust the education that allows people to take a track. When I went to law school, yes, you're learning, you run the gamut of what you learn, but towards the end of your studies, you go into a concentration of where you think you want to end up. Even backing up one step further into a bachelor's, you have your general education requirements. As you get to your major, you dive into there. I think, again, education is important. I personally don't see this as, being a necessary four-year bachelor's. But I think we have to groom candidates into this field and recognize where their preferences lie so that we can, A, take out the unnecessary parts of the education and create a more well-rounded program for our rising funeral directors.
Yeah, and that's an awesome point by Jen, because do we need to rethink our curriculum within mortuary schools? Do we need to offer that, those first semester, 2 semesters that you're in mortuary school and you focus on the general part, the important part that everybody needs to know about the industry? And then the last semester, do you move into more of a focus? What do you want to do in particular? But then, like I said, can we streamline? Would it be beneficial to streamline, have a national standard from state to state, 100%? Now, how realistic that is a different story. And is that truly a battle worth fighting, or is the battle, do we need to just convince states and the leadership in the states that to bring in the best people into our industry, we have to be more flexible on, that embalming aspect because not everybody wants to do that. So states that already have the dual license, that's great because if you can, or sometimes some states you don't even need to be licensed to make make funeral arrangements. But the dual license is great because you can go down that track that you feel most comfortable with and what you want to do, or do both. So I think the fight is to get the understanding that we need to educate consumers, clients about what it is, what we do, who's best fit for this industry, and then being able to market to those people. Like Jen said, hospitality people, hospice workers. This would be a great industry for you to go into. If you just love working with people, this would be great for you to come into. But we have not, as a profession, educated the public as to what it is we do. We allow Hollywood and social media to show our story rather than us telling the story ourselves.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And to that point again, we want the industry protected. We just don't want anybody fly by night coming in, and we do recognize the value of what we do. So the argument for a split license or the introduction of more candidates, it's not rooted in devaluing the license. On the flip side, if we can keep everybody under the guise of some type of licensure, we've protected our industry, but we've also recognized that the severe labor shortages that plague so many of us, and Ryan and Antonio, I think, you guys are really well versed in this. It's not getting better. The pipeline of candidates is not, there's not a line of people outside the door of a funeral home waiting to get into work. We have to recognize that. And we have to protect our industry by maintaining the semblance of licensure, by writing the rules on education. But I think it's time, again, we have to shift the mindset. The funeral director is not meeting with the family, preparing the body for a 3-day viewing. This is not the way of the world anymore. So we really need to take our cues from the world around us. And if we don't adjust to this, I think we face a real severe situation in years to come.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Of just the attraction into the profession, not dumbing it down, but allowing the changes necessary to evolve with what the consumer needs are, what those different tracks are. If not everybody wants to be an embalmer, I do think of the states where you don't have to be licensed to be an arranger, where you can bring hospitality people in, and the quality of what gets discussed in those arrangements, because just somebody that wants to do that. That's their specialty is event planning. So, what are some of the problems with current state licensing structures, and what effect do they create on the profession?
So I think we kind of touched on that with, the dual license versus single license. I think the track, going back to what Jen said about the education, being able to change your state association or your state test to be more reflective on, and a lot already are, but to be more reflective on your specific state laws. I mean, that really should be the only thing you're taking a state test for, is just what's different across the board, what's specific to my state that I need to know. The national board exam, that is to cover everything, the sciences, the overall business law, things like that. That should be what the national board covers, and then that should be, naturally accepted by every state, and then your state exam just focuses on those state laws. But being able to have those, like I said, that split license, to be able to bring in the right people, to be able to encourage the people that want to come in and just serve families but don't necessarily want to embalm, that gives them that opportunity to do so. And then going back to like I said earlier, is just being able to market to the right people. It gives funeral homes and the death care industry an ability to reach out to different industries or certain people, and it gives your employment pool a lot bigger to work from.
Yeah. Jen, any thoughts on that?
No, I agree with everything that Antonio said. And I think part of the danger that you run is there's so many outside influence that are trying to penetrate our space in death care. You have sometimes hospice workers go above and beyond and they get a little too into the weeds of planning. There are cases right now in the courts of death doulas that are out there trying to discuss funeral arrangements with families, and there's a question of the legality of it. So I think in order to arm us in our industry in this fight against all the forces that are looking to, to take away from us, you need the right people. You need people who can educate, market, bolster the funeral home's bottom line, and be able to show the value of being a funeral director, of working with your funeral director. Nowadays people think they can just, we don't need a funeral home. We can do a celebration of life anywhere. You need somebody at that table to say, hey, hold up. We as funeral directors, we've been creating celebrations of life for hundreds of years. This is what we do. But you are not, you're going to lose the chance to capture that family if you don't have the right person answering that phone, meeting with that client family. So again, we have to recognize the skill set. This is a people skill set, not devaluing the clinical skill set. I'll be the first one to admit I don't have it. I had to have it at some point. I clearly don't have it anymore. We have to recognize again, the modern funeral director is not one person. There are two different diametrically opposite skills that come together in a funeral home, but they're not the same person who has them.
And one thing too, we got to start thinking about is, like you were saying, the event planning aspect of what we do. There's only so many new products that are going to come out that be able to add revenue to the funeral home. So we've got to start thinking more on a service base to be able to add those revenue streams. And just like Jen said, we've been putting on services for hundreds of years. I mean, we know what to do for this specific niche and how to put on a event. So why not bring in people who like doing that? I know I'm not an event planner. I know how to schedule a funeral, but what would it be like if I could bring in an event planner and, of course, oversee and show them the nuances of what we do? But they're going to bring in so many new ideas that I would never think of that we can incorporate into our services. So it just goes back to that thinking outside the box.
Yep.
But I think being able to create new revenue streams here in the near future is going to be based on those services. What kind of services can we offer?
I love it. It's such a big conversation. I mean, we could probably create an entire conference around just licensing changes and what to do. You both operate in different states. So I want to ask you, I'll start with you, Jen, like what would you like to see change in your own current state licensing structure?
As I've been saying, I'd like to see the license split. New York is a minority in the unified license for sure. I would like to see, again, everybody under the guise of a license, with education requirements, with continuing education requirements. But I'd like to see a license for a full license, which allows you to embalm, arrange, direct, remove, and then a separate license that's all but embalming. I have no problem with parameters such as if you want to be the license manager, you need to have the full license, or treating this as a full and a junior license. But I would like to see whatever they want to call it is fine, but a license that encompasses all aspects of the field except embalming. I would like to see the education include embalming for those candidates of a secondary license. Again, I think they have to have a modicum of knowledge on the subject matter. I don't think they need to be bogged down with semesters worth of chemistry and restorative art or undergoing a clinical, but I do think they need to learn the subject matter superficially at some level. But ultimately, I would like to see a two-license system in the state of New York, and I can say that my neighbors in Jersey have just passed that fairly recently, in 2025, really within the past couple of weeks or months.
I'm Michigan. I'm relatively happy with how we do it. We have a single license, but ours is not as restrictive on making arrangements or even conducting services. So I think Michigan does have it right in that realm. But what I would like to see is more reciprocity across state to state. As you know, we're a transient country. People are moving from state to state across the country. I would like to see much easier reciprocity. If you're licensed in one state, you know, you should be able to transfer that relatively easy to the next state. But where that comes in is having those more across the board standards, because some standards to a state looks like, well, they don't meet our standards, so you're going to have to retest, or you're going to have to, you know, sit in front of the board here in order to transfer the license or get a Michigan license or another state's license. So being able to have that standardization across the board will help that. I think the bigger conversation needs to be with the national board and with some of these more. It'd be great to see a panel discussion across with the national board and mortuary schools to see what does our curriculum look like, what can it look like in the future, and how should we go about changing that.
That's a big conversation there. I mean, so that I'll wrap it up with this. Like, what needs to happen next? Like, where do we go from here? Like, we can break the ice and have this conversation and throw a lot of things out there. And there's things going back and forth in the chat as well. Not necessarily specific questions here, but more conversational topics. Where do we go from here? What do we do?
I think the conversation, like I said, we're opening the door today. Continue the conversation. Everybody that's on here, everybody's listening to the replay of this, we can create some kind of group to start that kind of continue the conversation. I think, unfortunately, if we do leave it up to our leadership right now, not much is going to happen, and that's not a dig at them, but I mean, that's, you know, just how tradition goes. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So,
it's broke, but it's broke.
It depends it depends who views it. Some people view it as not being a problem, and it's been the same thing forever, and we can still work around it. But start the conversation, continue the conversation. You know, use us as resources. I think it would be great if we can figure out a way to create some kind of a virtual conversation around this and being able to drive the change, because it's the small business owners that are going to drive the change from state to state. I don't think you should leave it to your leadership to just take it upon themselves to do it.
Yeah. Jen?
I think that one of the unique features of this problem is it unites both the independent funeral home and the conglomerates. So we're all united by this. We're all feeling labor shortage, and we're also noticing that the different, the rising funeral director and residents, and representing this new generation. We're all feeling this. So this is not an independent mom and pop funeral home versus a big conglomerate. We all feel this crunch. I think grassroots. I think you have to contact your state associations and let your voices be heard. It's not going to happen overnight, but you have to have. It's never going to happen at all without some type of rise up, speak, let your voice be heard, gather. I'm a big believer in stop looking at your competitors as you look at them as colleagues. You're all facing something. Work together with them. Go to your funeral homes within close radius, have a conversation with them, and there's strength in numbers. So going to your boards and your state associations, I mean, is great, but going with others is even more impactful. We have to try to band together on this. It's not going to happen. We're not going to fight this as lone wolves. We really are going to fight this in packs.
I love it. This is such a big conversation. Jim, we have a specific question for you. Is there any thought in New York of removing this necessity to have a different license for each location owned? Do you know that? A different licensed manager, sorry. A different licensed manager.
Really no conversation on topic of that right now. It's so funny. Like New York is, I don't want to jinx it, but they don't have inspectors really out there in the field. It's very difficult to get through to the DOH, like to the Bureau of Funeral Directing. But on that token, there's no discussion on the table that at least has been brought before the board as for the removal of that requirement.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Jen, thank you so much for making the time to be on. Antonio, thank you for being here. Again, I feel like this is we barely scratched the surface. Like we're starting to open the wrapper of this, but it's a big conversation, and let's keep it rolling. So thank you both for making the time to be on. Awesome. Well, that wraps up the 2025 Funeral Unconference. Thank you to all of you who tuned in over the last 2 days. I haven't looked at the final numbers, but I think we're close to 1,700 people registered, which is amazing, the largest virtual event in death care. I want to make sure I thank all of our sponsors, but I'm going to announce the dates real quick for next year. And we've got a graphic for that. We are going to be holding the Unconference on June 23rd and 24th. Next year, we will do it in person again, and then we'll have virtual as well. And we're going to be sending out some surveys and things to get feedback from all of you who tuned into the live stream, to get your feedback. We obviously are going to talk amongst our panels as well and get feedback to continue to evolve this and grow it. But I want to thank all of our sponsors, starting with our title sponsor, Tukios and Curtis Funk. Curtis was a moderator of a few panels as well, so thank you to Tukios, huge supporters of the Unconference. Elevia, Travel Plan by Inman, Sepio Guard, Johnson Consulting Group, Legacy.com and Legacy Pro, Foresight Companies, Funeral 365, Ring Marketing, Global Atlantic, First Call Marketing, Batesville. Thank you, Jen Graziano, C&J Financial, Antonio Green, Cremation Recycling, Matthews International, Wilbert Group, MemoryShare, Tribute Technology, Treasured Memories, and OneRoom Streaming. So thank you all so much. Appreciate you for tuning in, and we'll see you next year. That wraps up the 2025 Funeral Unconference. Thank you for kicking it with us over the last 2 days. We have had thousands of people tune into the live stream, and man, what a great event. Thank you to our title sponsor, Tukios, and make sure that you mark down next year, the 2026 Funeral Unconference will be happening June 23rd and 24th. So make sure you put those dates in your calendar. Get ready for it. We are excited to bring it to you again next year. Thank you for watching and tuning in to the 2025 Funeral Unconference. And thank you to our title sponsor, Tukios, and all of our panelists who help make this event possible.